And welcome back, everybody, for another great night here on the Freedom Revolution Network. This is Scarlet Anonymous, and we are waiting for Tim to join us here in a few minutes. We are going to be talking about, as the title suggests, worldwide wild weather. Say that 10 times fast. But we're going to be talking about some of the events that have occurred over the past few days, and it's really been an intense 96 hours of worldwide extreme weather that we're only hearing really small bits and portions of, which to me is very concerning. We should be hearing a lot more about what's happening, literally worldwide. So we're going to go check this out. I'm going to look up a few articles here while we have time. All right. And like I said, Tim will be joining us here very, very soon. Hello, Dwayne. Glad to see you here. And so what really started me about thinking about even doing this show, right, was the other day we were getting ready to have the Alaska storm. And during that time, we weren't getting that much information. They weren't really warning people up there. And so I was really concerned for what was about to happen. Because they're still getting some hurricane force winds up there, in that area. And nobody has still been talking about it to this day. And if you look up even, Alaska storm, you hardly find any information, which I find really interesting, right? Okay, so I thought this was interesting. So USA Today, the last thing we hear is 2 days ago. We haven't heard anything since 2 days ago. And they were talking about how people were, getting evacuated, the remnants of this typhoon. And it wasn't remnants of a typhoon. What people need to realize is that once a storm crosses the international date line up there, there's no name for a storm. So once it crosses the Bering Sea, there's no name. They just call it a Bering Sea low. But it's still technically, for all intents and purposes, would be a hurricane. Typhoon is what they're called on the other side of the international date line. So technically, it would still be the same thing. And so that is what bothered me about this, is that they just didn't even have a name for this storm. But they say the full extent of the storm's impact may not be clear for days. Well, it's 2 days later and we still haven't heard anything. They said over 1,000 miles of coastline, including some of the most remote areas of the United States. According to Jeremy Zidek, a public information officer with Alaska's Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. It's a very large area, and the damage across that area really varies quite a bit, and access to these areas is difficult. The storm is still ongoing in the northwest part of the state. This was 2 days ago. No injuries or fatalities have been reported yet, but they are conducting a search from a young boy missing from Hooper Bay, one of the heavier hit villages. For years, scientists have expressed concerns that climate change has set the stage for greater impacts from large non-tropical cyclones in Alaska. Warmer summers and oceans have caused a greater than normal seasonal loss of ice, as well as which makes the region more vulnerable to ocean inundation. Mike Dunleavy declared an emergency Saturday in the face of the unprecedented storm. Communities along the low-lying western coast also saw severe flooding and violent winds. Roads, of which there have been a few in the region, have battered and washed away. The storm surge knocked out lines of communication, prompted evacuations, and wrenched homes from their foundation. One unoccupied house drifted until it got under the Snake River Bridge. The tide gauge in Nome, which is being known at the endpoint of the famed Iditarod Trail sled dog race, showed levels more than 9 feet above normal levels early Saturday, exceeding the peak seen during the ferocious storms in 2011 and 2004, according to the National Weather Service. A fire broke out at the Bering Sea Bar and Grill in Nome amid the heavy winds. An offshore buoy reported waves at or above 35 feet for 12 hours, peaking at more than 50 feet. I believe the official reading was like 53.8 feet. And while winds gusted for 70 miles an hour for over 11 hours. That is a hurricane. You can call it a non-tropical low, whatever, but that's a hurricane. If you have 70-mile-an-hour winds, 74-mile-an-hour or more would make it a Cat 1. Certain areas had wind gusts up to 90. You got 50-foot waves, and you're just calling this a small storm? No. This thing was like basically a hurricane at this point. They said all of these communities, there's no road connections to any of them. It's a very different setup than anywhere in the lower 48. Runways will have to be cleared before people can receive supplies. Most goods are moved by air or barge. Without power, people with packed freezers lose food for their upcoming season. The system punishing Alaska over the weekend was the remnants of Pacific Typhoon Merbok, which merged with a pair of non-tropical storms as it veered towards the Bering Strait, the thin strip of water between Russia and Alaska. It's not new for Alaska to be hit with the fallout for a former typhoon, but this one came fast and furious and taking a shorter path than usual. This one was special because of how strong it developed. It's also unusually massive, larger than the size of Texas and almost as big as Alaska proper. Most of the affected areas saw winds between 60 and 80 miles an hour. It's important for people to understand that these things are possible for us. It was devastating for a lot of communities. Mark Springer, the mayor of Bethel, said his town, which is 60 miles inland from the Bering Sea, is far enough away from the worst flooding to avoid much of the property damage, but the water is rising boot high in some places. He heard villagers lost their fish racks and smokehouses, as well as the subsistence sheds where people keep their gear and motors. His social media timelines have been full of pictures of floodwaters and evacuations. Many boats floated away and sank, cutting off another vital means of transportation. Boats are going to be scattered all over the tundra. In some cases, you're going to have to wait until the ground freezes and go over with snowmobiles and try to drag them. The massive storm surge and gigantic waves could cause heavy beach erosion at any time of year, but the fact that the storm struck in the September heightened the erosion risk. It also arrived during hunting season, meaning that hundreds of people who might have been hunting in the remote Alaskan wilderness would be without access to updates about the storm and might be stuck off the grid. The Nome Council Road used by hunters and Alaskans to travel inland from the Bering Sea coast has been partially washed away. Major flooding was also reported in the small coastal communities of Chevak, Kotlik, Nutak, Golovin, and Shaktoolik, where multiple evacuations were necessary. And Shaktoolik, if any of you guys ever watched the show Life Below Zero, that town, Shaktoolik, is featured. They've got a couple of people who live there. And so it's very small, very rural. They said also the area is particularly vulnerable to erosion, with some sections of the coastline losing up to 100 feet of land to the sea each year. According to the Fourth National Climate Assessment, a comprehensive climate change report looking at the impacts in the United States published in 2018. So, I mean, we know this was going to come anyway. They can say climate change or whatnot, but people need to realize these serious storms that are attacking people literally in their way of life around the world cannot be stopped. They honestly, at this point, can barely be predicted. Meteorologists are having a really hard time keeping up and understanding these quick and fast changes of which we've never seen before. One thing that also happened during the weekend was flooding in Italy. was the flooding in Italy. And I don't know if too many people heard about it, but the Italian flooding was wild. They said that they got a water bomb where in 1 hour, 420 millimeters of rain in less than 2 hours. That's over 20 inches of rain. And this was the 15th and the 16th. So about 4 or 5 days ago. The Guardian has an article from yesterday that said, I lost everything. Italians count cost of deadly flood in March. 11 people so far confirmed in floods that have forced climate crisis onto agenda before next week's election. Her face and clothes splattered with mud. Isabella Potilli, 74, fought back her grief as she sifted through the ruins of her home among the dozens destroyed by the catastrophic flooding that struck Italy's central marsh region on Thursday night. I lost everything, food, furniture. I need to throw it all away. But her emotions gave way as she entered her bedroom, where a photo hangs of her and her husband, who died 7 years ago on their wedding day. He loved music. He had over 200 records. All have been destroyed. Really precious items that I'll never get back. And so they never expected anything like this in Italy either. The last storm was 420 millimeters of rain falling within 9 hours, not 2. And one thing that I found interesting is that there is a guy named Mike from Around the World. He's on Pastor Paul Begley's show, and he comes on Thursday nights. And he was talking 2 to 3 months ago that we would start seeing these atmospheric rivers that would be called like water bombs, that would literally dump like 20 inches of rain in an hour or two. Literally what he's talking about. And now this has happened in the last 5 days in Italy, which means that we are getting closer and closer to the pole shift. It's only going to be continuing to be getting worse. I mean, we've seen things like Kentucky. We saw the St. Louis floods this year. But like I've said, in the last 48 to like 5, last 48 to 96 hours, maybe 120 hours ago, we have had 4 big catastrophic events: Alaska, Italy, Puerto Rico, which now has no power, the same as they were in Hurricane Maria. And Hurricane Maria was Category 4 when it hit Puerto Rico. This one was a Category 1, Fiona, and literally took them out. But it was twice the size. The eye was bigger in this one. The size was bigger. It was spinning and churning and spinning up faster. And I mean, the devastation in Puerto Rico, I can't even begin to elaborate on that. It's wild. Like, it is wild. Oh, that's so neat, Pam. You got a gift sub from one of Ryan Hall's chats, so I will get more in-depth behind the scenes stuff. Well, good for you. That'll be good. Yeah, you're right, though. But, okay, interesting you say that, though, TLO, that all the National Weather Service is talking about is Fiona, nothing about Alaska. But then again, for the oppressed Olympics, Puerto Rico will always trump the white folks in Alaska. But a lot of the indigenous folks have spoken up about this in the last week, because they're like, well, we're just indigenous and minority as the Puerto Ricans are. And there's more of them than there are of us. So this is unfair. So I guess a lot of the Native and First Nations communities up there have been getting pretty upset that FEMA declared Puerto Rico an emergency disaster area before they did. And their storm came first. So I found that highly interesting. So very interesting. So, I mean, we should be hearing about Alaska. We should be talking about Puerto Rico. We can't forget about Puerto Rico. A lot of people in the mainland U.S. acted like because it was hitting Puerto Rico, it was basically like a fish storm and nobody cared about it. But, you know, there are people who live in the Caribbean and on these little islands. And the U.S. Virgin Islands, we should be taking care of those people as well as Puerto Rico. You know, these are our places and territories, of which, if they're not going to be, and all the liberal crowd could do this week is talk about, oh, well, Puerto Rico needs statehood. Puerto Rico can't even support itself right now, let alone try to become its own state. How's it going to become its own state when it barely can function when we have control? I mean, honestly, even the people of Puerto Rico are like, no, come on now. At least wait till we get on a better foot before you try to bring these things up. Like, oh, yeah, by the way, you get to be your own state now. Meanwhile, your whole infrastructure is broken. Have fun. I mean, that's what the people of Puerto Rico said that they felt like the United States government was doing this past week, because they're still talking about creating a statehood in the middle of their state being basically demolished. And here we go again. I mean, we lost 3,000 people after Hurricane Maria. How many people will we lose this time? Because the same things are happening. Floods, landslides, power outages. I mean, at one point, the whole island was without power. So if you didn't have a generator, you know, and a lot of people in off seasons, Maria happened in 2018. People could have sold their generators by now, or they broke down, or may not have had one still. Couldn't afford one now, especially with inflation. I can't imagine what inflation's like in these places that import everything. You know, I mean, you're right though, Kilo. They don't count as far as the minority hierarchy, but they should. They should count because they're just as important. You know, they're a marginalized people that don't have a large group backing. That's a big deal. But another thing, we're not hearing crap out of Puerto Rico either. So here's the deal. You know, I've been getting really upset. This is why I've done the type of news I've done for so long, you guys. Oh, hello, Tim.
Hello.
Welcome. This is why I've done this type of news for so long, though, is because whenever big things happen that are extremely devastating to human beings in our country and other countries, no one talks about it. They say it one night on the nightly news, and then we hear shit else about it, and no one ever cares. And for those people, this fight, once something happens to like them, doesn't get over the next week, the week after, the month after, even years after. There are still people who are still struggling from Hurricane Harvey and Katrina and still struggling, still trying to put their lives back together. So it is not just, oh, after everybody leaves, everyone's fine. They're not fine. These people are struggling, and then no one cares, and no one highlights their situation or their struggle, and they're just forgotten and left out to dry. And that's awful. And that's why I feel like that, you know, the least I can do is try to highlight that it's happening. And that's all I can really say. I mean, we can't find that much information, but at least if somebody says something, I feel like the more people who say something, then eventually maybe someone will care. I don't know at this point, but I do think it's important to watch these events.
You know how you get more attention to Puerto Rico and people that care?
How?
Give them more electoral votes.
Well, see, they were just talking about making them a state this week.
Yeah.
And the Puerto Ricans are kind of upset at the timing. It's not that they don't want to become a state, but it's like our infrastructure was just destroyed less than 4 years ago. How can we switch to be a state when we're not even functioning as a territory?
Did they ever get their power supply 100% back?
I don't know if they ever got it. I think they did eventually get it back online, but like, I'm not, you know, I don't know. Maybe some areas didn't. I'm sure some poorer areas had to make do with whatever.
Yeah. What?
Sad. TLO said the only mention of Alaska is a container ship that had Yeti coolers that went overboard and people waiting for them on shore. Well, you know what? I don't blame people because those Yeti coolers are like $400 or $500.
Yeah, that's true.
Legit. I might be sitting there waiting or go out with a fishing boat and a net. Like, let's go. Let's find some Yetis.
Got to put your beer in something.
I'm just saying, like, in Alaska, I mean, how much would a Yeti cost you up there if they're $400 down here? Should
Right.
be like $600-800 for a goddamn Yeti cooler.
Yeah.
I'd be waiting for one too. Shit. But isn't that sad that that's the only thing people care about is goddamn Yeti coolers? Like, what about these people who now have no place to live? You know, their way of life is screwed. Most of these people forage off the land, and now they have no way to do this. Smokehouses ruined, fish house shacks ruined. You know, the little subsistence shacks out in the woods. Those actually keep people alive in Alaska. You know, people stock those with food and clothing and shit so that if people are out hunting, you have somewhere to stay because there's nowhere to stay out in the middle of nowhere when there's no infrastructure. So it's really sad to see that happening. And like they said, how many tourists could be out there who are killed right now, dead, because they didn't realize the storm was coming?
Yeah, it's sad.
Isn't it? And we'll never hear about those people because everybody who dies during these events, we never hear about them. They're just allowed to die, and that's it. No one cares. It's a sad truth, but that's how they do it every time. You know, these people are allowed to just expire, and no one cares. You know, just like in Maria, they at first said nobody died. Then they came out 2 years later and were like, oh yeah, by the way, 3,000 people died. And we knew that because we were hearing reports from people saying there was bodies everywhere, all this crap. The next one that's really important that we need to be watching is this new hurricane that's forming down in South America that is probably going to hit Florida. According to the models we're seeing, it looks like a dead hit for Florida. Florida has not had too many hurricanes as of recently.
None one when I was there. That was it.
Yeah, that was it. And they usually get more action throughout the years.
Mm-hmm.
And so the one thing about Floridians is that they don't care about hurricanes. And that is going to be really dangerous once we get a storm that actually takes people out, like in Mexico Beach. When Michael came through, everybody pretty much forgot about that. And that was Category 5 that hit landfall.
Wow.
And nobody remembers that one. It took out the whole damn town. Like the town pretty much doesn't even exist anymore. And this is what I'm talking about. Is like these big events happen. No one talks about them. Everybody forgets about the people. No one gives a shit. Now, I bet they would care if it happened to them, though. And this is why we need to start, because as the ground solar minimum, as the pole shift gets closer and closer, the shit is only going to get worse. And we can't just act as if we don't pay attention to everybody else because it ain't happening to me. Because the next thing we know, it is going to be happening to you.
You know how you get the news attention before this happens? Everybody from Puerto Rico goes to Martha's Vineyard. Think about it.
Did you see that they're suing and started class action lawsuit?
Yeah, I know. I can't
even with that.
Yeah, it's like that is just so upside down and twisted, and it's like, what?
Upside down crazy world.
Yeah.
That's where we live now. And this is the problem. We get this every day now. It's just like upside down crazy.
Legit. Human trafficking, right? That's what they're going for.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to call it.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. Oh, there was interesting.
What?
A new hurricane just got developed over, it's in the middle of the Atlantic. But it's right by the Azores. But it's not supposed to like directly hit them. But that one just popped out of nowhere.
Is that right off the coast?
That one developed really far north.
Where's that?
Yeah, the Azores, remember, that's like not too far from like the Canary Islands. Like, remember like La Palma did and all that? It's way out in the middle of the ocean. There's nothing else out there around them either. But that just developed. We've got a 60% chance on that new one that I was talking about down by South America that everybody's watching. And it's a tropical wave. It's a few hundred miles east of the Windward Islands. And they say it will probably become a tropical depression within the next 2 or 3 days. And then it will move towards the central Caribbean Sea later this week. Interest in the Windward Islands should closely monitor progress of the system, as heavy rainfall and gusty winds could affect these islands beginning on Wednesday. And they're expecting formation chance through 48 hours, high 70%. Formation chance through 5 days, 90%.
What's
and then they're expecting another tropical wave to come off of the coast of Africa. Like there was one model reading for like next week that showed literally like 5 hurricanes on the board at one time. And seeing this is already setting it up for 4 that we could have in the next week. We already got the one that'll develop in the next 2 days. We got the other 2. The one is Fiona, the other one Gaston that just spun up out in the Atlantic, and then this one, and then the wave off of Africa, and that would be 4 at once. And once we start getting to that point, because I had a feeling hurricane season was going to do that this year, because we didn't get any early hurricanes like we've been getting all the other years. You know, Dwayne and I have been following hurricanes since 2017. And this year was very different than every other year. We had a lot of dry desert Sahara air coming off of the coast of Africa for many months that was inhibiting growth. And now that has stopped. So now we are seeing the spin ups. And they say about this time of year is the peak of Atlantic hurricane season. So we're on schedule for seeing this. I think people have forgotten what it's like, because this year has been really calm. And then we had the pandemic, which only had a couple storms between there and then. And so I think people have gotten out of their minds how bad this can actually be. Who's trying to refreeze the poles?
I don't know. That's why I highlighted
this TLO.
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
Talk about Snowpiercer. Like, look, yep. I've seen that movie. Nope, not trying to live that. Seen the movie, watched it. I'm not trying to eat cockroach bars. I'm cool.
Ew.
Yeah, they make like this protein jelly bar thing, and it's made out of cockroaches. And they don't know that though. Have you ever seen Snowpiercer?
No.
That movie's fucked up. You got to watch that.
Okay, well, I will.
Oh, it's so fucked up and dystopian. Oh.
I know there's a series.
It makes you sick when you watch it. Like, it's so bad. But it's so good. It's a good-ass movie, though. I think it's got, like, Gerard Butler in it or something.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
It's a good movie. It's got somebody in it.
Government scientists are doing it?
It's like a weird, maybe that's not the dude who is in it, but it's somebody's in it.
Yeah.
But it's messed up. Apparently, it's based on a fiction graphic novel.
Okay.
I didn't know this. So there's actually a book behind it.
They try cooling off the planet because of global warming, right? And they fuck it all up.
I'm pretty sure, yeah. And then it basically killed everybody, and then like everybody lives on this train.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's the way it works. Oh, Chris Evans. I knew it was somebody.
Oh, it's Chris Evans? Wow.
Yeah, I knew it was somebody that was popular. Yeah, there we go. TLO is our resident movie expert.
Cool.
Yeah, because he always knows that. But yeah, no, we're not refreezing the poles. Why can't we just accept that the Earth can change from what we've been used to?
Thank you. It's called
climate change. I just don't understand this.
Well, people need to think about it a little bit, because if things are getting more aggressive in climate change and drastic, that means something's going to happen because it's trying to reach equilibrium. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Something would have to give at a certain point. I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Octavia Spencer. Yeah, she was good in that too.
And the sun's burning hotter. So that doesn't help.
No, and
what are you going to do?
They were just talking about this tonight. Did I actually? I gotta see if I actually.
Oh,
nope, I put it on Facebook. So it was about basically that these people have come up with this idea that basically Planet X is real, and that's what they think is making our sun dip 6 degrees and move out of its orbit. So I thought that was interesting.
Well, that
And
makes
they
more
said that, yeah, well, they call it Planet Nine, but same thing. When you
Whatever.
look up like Planet Nine, it also says known as Planet X. So same thing, whatever you want to call it. Nemesis, Wormwood, Planet X, Planet Nine, whatever you want to call it, because they found Planet Nine in 1987. And so they've known about this for a long time. They're trying to act like, oh, this is a new idea. But like they said, this theory would be so groundbreaking on what it actually means to admit that that would be, affecting our solar system that people don't want to do it. It's too big of a rabbit hole.
It is quite deep. Yes.
It would be.
Yeah, I even agree with that.
Because we'd have absolutely no control. We think of our, solar system as, fixed, stationary, these things, but this would take it out of the realm of our understanding because that's bigger than what we can even conceptualize.
Well, it's just gravitational pull of a larger body of mass, and is pulling on the Earth and other planets. Obviously,
right?
It's supposed to be. I don't know what the size of it is because I've done my homework on this.
They said it's like 6 million times, 6,000 times Earth, 6,600 times Earth. Hold on, let me find the article now.
Yeah, I think they
feel like
made it to Jupiter. I can't remember. It's like fucking huge.
Okay, here we go. Okay, that was a video. I hate autoplay. Okay, so something massive in our solar system has tilted the sun by 6 degrees. That's the name of the article. According to experts, our sun is tilted by 6 degrees compared to the sun's equator. The reason behind this has remained an astronomical mystery for decades. Now experts believe they finally found an answer. Planet Nine. Elizabeth Bailey is an astrophysicist and planetary scientist at California Institute of Technology, so Caltech, in Pasadena. According to her, not only did Planet Nine tilt our sun by 6 degrees, the missing planet may have tilted the other planets over the lifetime of the solar system. Planet Nine is a still undiscovered celestial body believed to exist on the outermost edges of our solar system and was predicted by the work of Konstantin Batkin and Mike Brown in January of 2016. According to experts, all the planets located in our solar system orbit on a flat plane with respect to our sun, within a few degrees of each other. However, experts, not that plane, no, that doesn't make sense, rotates at a 6 degree tilt. I don't know why they put that because that doesn't make sense. 6 degree tilt compared to the sun, which gives an appearance that our sun isn't the way that it should be. For years, no one was able to explain how something like this was possible. What could cause our sun, the most massive body in our solar system, to tilt by 6 degrees? In fact, the sun is oriented differently than everything else in our solar system. It's such a deep-rooted mystery and so difficult to explain that people just don't talk about it, says Brown, the Richard and Barbara Rosenberg Professor of Planetary Astronomy. To get to the bottom of the mystery, Bailey and fellow researchers ran computer simulations and found out that the tilt of the 8 planets could be explained by the gravitational influence of Planet Nine. In an interview with Space.com, Bailey noted that while this is one in theory, there still are potential other explanations for the curious tilt of our solar system that has adapted over the 4.5 billion years of its lifetime. One explanation is that there may be an imbalance in the mass of the nascent sun's core. According to Konstantin Batkin and Mike Brown, our sun most likely orbited by an unseen massive planet about 10 times the size of Earth, with a staggering orbit that's believed to be around 20 times farther from the sun than that of Neptune. The curious tilt of our sun and remaining bodies in the solar system has long been a mystery for astronomers. Experts believe that Planet Nine's angular momentum in physics, angular momentum, really moment of momentum or rotational momentum, is the rational analog of linear momentum, which is creating a massive impact on the solar system based on its location and size. Well, this is one of the explanations to the curious tilt of our solar system. Experts still have to find the rogue planet.
Well, I think they know exactly where it's at, from what I know.
Oh, they do. They do.
They're just not going to tell you. That thing comes around every, I don't know, so many thousands of years. It's not the first time it's done it.
Well, that's just it.
Yeah. They just don't want you, because everybody's going to lose their shit. Can't even handle politics. You're going to deal with a
no, they took away Pluto, Pam. So no.
There is no Pluto?
No, they took it away as a planet.
What is
know that?
Moon? No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they demoted it as a planet.
So what is it?
I forgot what they said it was, but that was a few years ago. Yeah, they demoted it. Pluto's no longer a planet. And I felt some type of way about that. I was like, my childhood was a lie.
That's what I was taught. Pluto's the
Right. That's what we were all taught. But it says the astronomical union downgraded the status of Pluto to that of a dwarf planet because it did not meet the 3 criteria the IAU uses to define a full-size planet. Essentially, Pluto meets all the criteria except one. It has not cleared its neighboring region of other objects. So that's why.
So it's like
But that was like
what?
But NASA scientist, I guess, says that it is.
So it's argumentative. It's like the definition.
It's argumented. Yep.
It's like the definition of inflation.
Yep. Exactly.
It changes.
So some people say it is. Some people say it's not. Because I guess in 2006 they downgraded it. I knew it was a while ago.
It's a planet. It was there. That's what I was taught. And
see, look, TLO just said they may upgrade. It's under discussion. I mean,
who gives a shit? Just call it a planet.
Leave it the planet. Yeah. Like, what matters if it's a dwarf planet or not? Like, I don't think most people really understand the difference anyway.
And they don't care.
And if there's no life on it, why does it matter? It's still a planet.
Exactly. We're not going there. We'll never go there, and we'll never inhabit it. So just leave it alone. There's other important things to worry about than Pluto being a planet.
Well, I mean, that's just it. Like Planet 9 coming to whoop our ass, like that should be more important.
Yeah, let's worry about Nibiru.
That's what Planet 9 is. Same shit. Planet X, Planet 9, Nibiru.
Yep.
Wormwood. Whatever you want to call it. Same shit.
Which is in the Bible, which a lot of people don't know.
It is in the Bible, and they do talk about biblical wormwood. And, a lot of things that they talk about that when biblical wormwood occurs is occurring now. The only thing we haven't seen yet is like the rocks flying from the sky, you know what I mean? But the meteor shower could come anytime.
Right.
A lot of people have been saying that they believe that's when the rapture is going to occur because they have heard from the powers that be is when that meteor shower occurs, they're going to send nukes.
Oh, wouldn't that be convenient? What, over to China and Russia?
Everywhere, yeah. They're just going to blast us all to hell.
North Korea, and interesting.
Well, with the level of mass destruction it would probably create, they probably need to nuke us just so they don't have to go help nobody.
No, that's pretty
legit.
That's pretty fucked up.
Isn't it? I mean, when you really think about it, it's messed up. But
yep.
I'm just saying, like, I could see why that could maybe be an idea. I'm not saying it's a good idea.
Well, you might as well destroy everything and start from scratch. I mean,
yeah.
What
do you mean, who?
I don't know. Who?
Who what? You and Al? Like, what's going on?
He's going to be an owl. Yeah, that's his person.
Right. I know. Don't fuck around with TLO, though.
Who?
Yeah, because, I mean, he said who, and I wasn't looking when he wrote it, so I don't know what I was saying. Why I would say who and why he wouldn't know.
So can we just briefly talk about the shift that has been happening forever and is in our history, and probably between that and planet Nibiru coming around all at the same time, which could be the cause of our weather patterns, right?
Yep.
In volcanic activity. And
absolutely.
Yeah. It's not just happening because it's happening. There's something causing it.
Well, that's just it. And that's the problem that I think people aren't wanting to admit. Like, for instance, I found this article about, from March of this year, scientists observing threat of developing supervolcano beneath the U.S.
Yeah.
So that means things are always still changing.
Yeah, right. And that's weather.
You know what I mean? Like, why can't we act like things could change and places might not be hospitable for life anymore?
Well, all these people are freaking out about the weather and climate change.
The West Coast was an inland sea, and we're worried about climate change and where people can live. That shit was a whole ass sea.
That's what I was going to get at. I mean, would everybody be happy that it'll be sunny every day around the planet and it's 72 degrees and sunny? Is that what they want?
I think so. They want us, and if that's the case, then make a dome.
Yeah. Well,
Mm.
don't even go there because the flat earthers say there is. So, but yeah, I get what you're saying. I just don't understand the whole hysteria about weather change because that's what it does. It's done that, and it still hasn't been
Oh,
the
they
100.
said the powers that be, like, like national governments. I don't know if it'd be us or China, Russia, but that's what people said. That was the word on the street.
I think it came from the UN. That's what I think.
That could be too. Like, that could be too. I could see them doing it.
I'm really getting tired of those people because from what I know, that's unconstitutional anyway.
Yeah, they're not allowed to function the way they are.
Well, especially having their headquarters on United States property. I mean, really? We're not
Yeah.
supposed to be entangled, or I don't know exactly what it says, but we're not supposed to be in foreign affairs with foreign people. I don't care what you call it.
Yeah, absolutely. No.
Especially when they create treaties and whatever they call them to supersede or go around the Constitution, and then they have precedence or priority over our own Constitution. That's not how it's supposed to be. I mean, they're fucking everything up, man. There is no climate. Just, I saw Tesla today, and I'm like, and with all due respect to the technology and advancement in Elon Musk and people trying to do something and do the right thing and say, oh, well, I filled up my little car and it was $50, so I'm spending probably $200 a month on fuel, where somebody would go, oh, well, I don't fill up my gas tank, so it doesn't cost me nothing. You know what's going to happen when the grid finally gets overloaded? Your electric bill is going to be a minimum of $400 to charge your car, if you can even charge it.
True.
Then what are you going to do? All because of the UN and all these people scaring the shit out of everybody that you're burning fossil fuels, which coal plants, which are not as bad as they used to be, causing all the chemicals they dump into the air and everything because of the scrubbers. But, you're getting that electricity from somewhere, and I'll bet you any amount of money they're going to build more nuclear power plants, which aren't the safest things on the planet. So it's like it's shifting, it's misdirection. It's, well, we're not going to burn fossil fuels anymore and save the planet. Do you know those batteries? Allegedly, the government has bought a bunch of land, speaking of Alaska, up there. And when those batteries go bad, they're going to take them up there and bury them.
What?
Yeah.
No way.
It's like nuclear waste. They don't know what to do with it except try shoving it in Cheyenne Mountain, which they tried and people fought it. But yeah, now they bought a bunch of land in Alaska, allegedly, and that's where we're going to bury all these fucking batteries when they can't figure out what to do with them. I don't know if you can find that, but that's pretty. I was told that by a very reliable source. So it's just smoke and mirrors or misdirection. It's like, where you're going to do this, but that, it's like a teeter-totter. You push one end and the other one's going to go up and vice versa. There's no way out of this stuff. And I just refuse to be guilt-ridden that I'm destroying the planet because I'm driving my car. It's just fucking ridiculous. It's if it was that bad for the planet, something would have happened a long time ago, especially in this. Well, especially since the internal combustion engine was invented back in 1920s or thereabouts, and those cars ran like shit. I mean, they were just putting out so many bad gases and pollutants that it was crazy all the way through the 70s. So, I mean, that's like 50 years of burning shit, and I just don't think it's a problem because it definitely would have came up there. Now with all the EPA requirements on a global scale for emissions, I don't really think it's a big problem. But I don't know. But and the CO2 thing's a bunch of horseshit because plants need that to survive, and it's not causing the planet to warm up. So it's just I don't know. I really don't understand why people can't at least go. Wait a minute. The weather has been changing forever, and I don't know what happened to Scarlett. And there is Greg Braden. There's a show on the Gaia Network, and they did some core samples that went back 800,000 years and pulled the cores out and analyzed them and charted it. And the weather has been doing the same freaking thing for 800,000 years before cars, airplanes, and the Industrial Revolution and everything else. It's doing the exact same thing. And the weather changes are more based on the elliptical orbit of the Earth around the sun. So it's been happening. It's like, but now they want to scare the living shit out of you and tax you and make you the problem because it's all a bunch of fear mongering and control horseshit. So that's just my opinion. But anyway, they will nuke the world. Yes, Mr. Bond. And Keiju, who's that? Has a trigger finger on the nukes. Who's that? I don't know who Keiju is. Who is that? If anything happens to Keiju, they will nuke whomever killed them. Let's see. The United Nations has been called to order in New York City. I guess it's their summit. Yeah. And I'm sure they all took airplanes there, aircraft. So I'm sure they didn't drive their Tesla, but any money. Tesla has emergency fuel tank. It does. For what? For gas? I didn't know that. Really? Why? So in case your extension cord isn't long enough and you get stuck in a hurricane from evacuations, that it'll die? Because that's a good idea, actually. You ain't going to catch me dead in a Tesla or in an electric car. You're just not. They are cool. They've come so far, but there's just no way an electric car can be as good as a combustion automobile yet. If they would have got off their asses and put a lot of energy into it and money, I don't mean energy as in energy, but energy is effort and concentration and priority. I think we'd all be driving electric cars by now, probably flying electric cars if they really, really put time and energy into it. But in my opinion, there's still more money for the oil companies to suck more shit out of the ground and sell it. And there was a lot more money to be had than and they weren't ready yet for that. That's what I think. I mean, I've heard so many stories way back when I was in high school with cars with carburetors were getting 100 miles per gallon.
There we go.
Yeah. What happened?
I don't know. It kicked me out and made me restart everything. And
oh, I know how that is.
Yeah, it was great.
I was just saying electric cars are a bunch of horse shit and the oil companies have been controlling everything, but now for some reason.
Oh, interesting. New information I found out today. Apparently there's this new Midwest hydrogen collective thing that Wells got us into. I'm here for it though, because I support hydrogen vehicles. I did a report on them once and they are the superior form of technology.
Yeah, their byproducts water. So
yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
So, I mean, like all these people who, want to yell about climate change, like, well, this would stop it. As far as like, human impact.
If you're going to bitch about climate change because of people with fossil fuels and using energy, then you just might as well, you talk about that bubble. You just might as well put yourself in a bubble and never leave your house because that's what you're going to have to do.
Right.
And that's not practical. But these people are scaring the hell out of everybody. And it's going to be the Hunger Games. I'm telling you. Mm-hmm. It's like the more this stuff goes by, the people in the cities and people with power are the ones that are going to have everything. And we're not going to have it.
Yeah, that's true, though.
Yeah. But the whole weather,
That's bullshit.
I think the weather thing is misdirection, trying to scare the shit out of people to keep them
Well,
distracted.
what can people even do about it? Like, even
No,
talk about climate change. Governments of the world are going to have to figure out what they're going to do for people. Yeah, okay. But we don't have to scare people to death to do that either, because there's nothing that the people can do about the weather. It's not like we can all sit outside with fans on and try to, you know what I mean? Try to push the weather a different way or something. Like, we can't do that. So what can the average person, and it's not about cow farts and car emissions. So it's like that, even if we stopped all that tomorrow, that wouldn't stop what's happening. And it's not because of that why it's happening. Like, no one wants to, is cyclical. That this probably has happened before. We all weren't alive. And we didn't record history. We haven't recorded history for so long.
it would make more sense to
And we
me.
didn't record everything.
It'd make more sense to me to be weather preparedness than worried about what the weather's doing. Wouldn't it?
Right.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
You'd think?
Yeah.
You'd really think so.
Yeah. Because there ain't jack shit you can do about it.
I would think so.
Kim
No.
Jong-un. What about Kim Jong-un?
Yeah, what about Kim Jong-un?
I mean, it's nice to predict
But yeah,
it and
I'm
everything.
interested in this hydrogen.
Who?
Yeah, I'm excited for this hydrogen co-op, though, because I'd like to see more hydrogen vehicles over electric, period. If we got to switch to something that's, climate friendly or whatever the fuck they want, hydrogen's the way to go. But see, the way that they're going to do hydrogen is not going to be the way that we get it the cheapest either. Because there's a way to put hydrogen generators in vehicles where it generates their own hydrogen supply, taking the oxygen from outside and then combusting it and then byproduct water. I have a feeling they're going to do little like hydrogen, like fuel canisters, kind of like an LP tank type deal.
Well,
that you're going to put in your vehicle.
You got plenty of hydrogen and water. All you got to do is run a DC current through it, and you separate hydrogen from oxygen, and voila, you got a power supply. But every time somebody comes up with that, they end up dead.
I bet you.
Yeah.
Because I knew the technologies existed, like I said, 20 years ago when I did my report in school. And I was the only one that did it on hydrogen, and I got the worst score.
How dare you?
I know. You want to know why? Because it'd be liberals who judge papers and shit in schools. And so because I knew my shit was not the official narrative, everybody else did theirs about ethanol and electric vehicles. This is about 2003. So before, like, a little bit, I don't know when the Prius first came out, but around then. Mm-hmm. So, like, the technology kind of existed then. But I'm still pissed about it to this day. It gets in my craw. Because I should have got a great grade. Because it is the technology of the future. And I was right.
Well, I got something for people to think about, and answer me this. So if everybody's so concerned about solar power and electric and all this crap, then when they tear the shit out of highways, why don't they put solar panels on them or on the sides of them to generate?
Right.
And every roof that's made now, they got the technology to make shingles that can...
photovoltaic shingles, yep.
Correct. That's the word I was looking for. To generate energy from sunlight, but they don't. Yeah.
No, they just want to blame cow farts and gasoline vehicles.
Your whole car could be painted with a paint that does that. I know the technology's there, but they don't. They just tear the shit out of everything and rebuild it with concrete and blacktop and asphalt. It's like, why couldn't you?
And half of that shit is made from sand, of which they keep stealing sand from everywhere, wondering why beaches are eroding around the world and all. But they steal all the sand. There's this documentary about sand wars, and it was highly interesting because I guess so many different industries need sand around the world, and they all just steal the shit off the beach because it's like free or whatever. And so they just steal the shit, and then nobody has sand, and then now the sand's disappearing all around the world because everybody's using it. For concrete, for glass, for other building materials. I'm pretty sure it's like an asphalt and other stuff too, because like concrete is basically made from sand and silica, So like,
yep.
so they were talking about that and how we're like getting like it's getting critical because they've stolen the sand from places that they felt like had, you know, unlimited sand, but that's not the truth. And now we're running out of sand.
There's a lot of sand here in Colorado. Most of it is actually.
Yeah, there is a lot of sand in Colorado. Hell,
Mhm.
go to Red's house. Dude, I still got sand in like the van that we took. Like, there's still sand in there.
Wow.
You'll never get that shit out. Legit. It's just all sand, brown sand, sand everywhere. Sand.
Yep.
Can't live with it. Can't live without it.
No,
I drove a Leaf. Oh, that's interesting. I've seen
Yeah.
those little Leafs are cute for being like a little electric vehicle. They're kind of cute.
I had a friend that had one, and she was a yogi and all this kind of crap and
Oh, right.
all that shit, and she got rid of it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, it's a lot of problems too. Like, you know, a lot of people are talking about their first generation batteries are going out, and, you know, now they don't want to replace first gen batteries. So they want to charge you like $20,000 for a new battery.
Right.
And it's like, well, shit. Some of the cheaper new cars are 25,000. You know, you can get you a little cheap ass Mitsubishi or something for that price. Like shit.
Yeah, there was
Like,
a story I saw that somebody bought a used electric vehicle, and the batteries went bad like really quick after they bought it. And
yep.
they go, I think it was a Ford. I don't want to say, I don't know, but it was a brand. And
Right.
they took it in, and they go, the cost of the batteries is more than the value of the car.
Yeah. And those batteries cannot even be recycled.
No,
How is that
barely.
environmentally friendly?
It's not. As I said, it's crack shit. It's
It is crack shit. And I
Yep.
need people to wake up and we need to demand better, cleaner choices. Why can't we be using propane? You know, the Minnesota Propane Association is paying people $5,000 to switch their cars over to propane.
You can do that. You can. It's not that expensive. The car.
No, but they're giving you $5,000 here in Minnesota.
Yeah. Well,
to switch over your car. If you will agree to a switch over your car, they're giving like $2,500 to switch over your lawnmower. And I think $350 if you switch over your like washer dryer. And then a couple other amounts of money for certain shit you could switch over to propane.
Yeah.
But hey, that's not bad. Like I thought about taking some of that free government money to switch my car over because like where's the catch? There's got to be a catch.
Right.
But the Propane Association said they want to see more vehicles on the road. And where I live, propane is a really popular choice for fuel, heating, all that. So like why not I could fill up at my house if I switch it over to propane.
Well, instead of subsidizing it, they got to let the market dictate which way things are going to go. So
yeah, I mean, but if they've got the money to pony up, I guess they might as well give it out.
Yeah, but if you go to propane and everybody goes to propane, and then propane's $10 a gallon because of supply issues, I mean,
I think they realize though that not many people are going to actually switch over.
I don't know if they're forced to.
Yeah, if they're forced to, I don't think they will. Well, now we just joined that little hydrogen jam. I was before my time, Pam. I'm just saying, for so many things, I really was before my time. People just did not understand what I was saying, and I sounded crazy out here. And now that I'm an adult, it all makes sense. But like at the time, I was feeling really fucking alone. Okay, like really alone. That's legit. But I've always been like that though, since I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I always was just like out of place with my own generation and with my own time, and like just messed up. I probably have been here a bunch of times. Why? I just feel so out of place. Because, I mean, shit. This place is getting wild. You know, I can't imagine. I mean, think about it. If there is reincarnation and we chose to came back here, what's wrong with us?
Because you haven't learned your lesson, whatever that is.
I feel like if anything, I came back to try to save humanity. I don't know about lessons.
Well, I don't know.
I mean, there are lessons you learn, but you know what I mean. I don't know if they're all for me.
Yeah, but you came back black. You could have been an asshole racist, so you need to learn your lesson to be black.
I mean, true that too.
Yeah. So
I'd like to do one of those like little past life regression things. I'd
Mhm.
like to like, I don't know if they're real or not, but it'd be fun though. Like what if I was like, some like important famous person in history and shit. Be dope.
So let's tie all this crazy stuff together. So
Let's do it.
weather patterns and hurricanes, which all much are pretty predictable for the most part, right?
Which have been, let's say, until about 5 years ago, were highly predictable because it was a science. There was a formula, it was following that to the T. The last 5 years, we have seen a direct shift in the accessibility for them to predict, them being off a lot of times lately, especially about strength, duration, things that they always got right before.
Okay. So why couldn't we put offshore not wind turbines, but like a boundary layer pump type turbine generator and have that motherfucker spin like a bastard and start charging a bunch of batteries and shit? And
See, that's what I'm saying. I don't
Yeah.
see why we can't create some type of backup grid, right? Because we know that our grid is fallible as it is right now. And with the way shit's set up, the Chinese have the lock on all of the computer parts and components for our actual electric grid in the United States. We don't make any of our own parts anymore like we used to.
Right.
So we have to import from all of them. And now that the chip shortage, partage shortage, and probably China just fucking with us, we don't have access to the things like we used to. So we really do need to think of other things to do just in case. What if we've been getting a lot of solar flares lately, big, large ones that nobody's been able to explain. What if we get one of these ones and our magnetosphere has been really fucked up lately and it's been really waning and basically like disappearing and coming back and disappearing and coming back? What if one of these solar flares hit us while it's at its lowest? And then boom, bam, bop, we got a little Carrington event. Then what?
Yeah, we're in trouble. Yeah.
We are in serious trouble. In the 1800s, we only had like teletype wires, like telegram wires, and a few goddamn phones.
Everything will
And
go.
that shit started on fire.
Yep.
So what the hell happens to us now? Our shit just blows up? Like that, I'm sure it could happen because shit, you're surging that much electricity. Everything is energized in a home now, from the lights to the light switches to the fucking electricity plugs. All that's got electricity. So what happens? All the wires in the walls, everything. They said those shit started on fire last time. What happens to all of us? Does our houses just all go poof?
See, that's one scenario that could knock out the internet because of the hardware.
Correct. Because then all the servers would be down because everything would just pop and catch on fire immediately. So all that shit would be done. And that shit took a really long time to build, okay? And it built on itself slowly. And the infrastructure was built slowly. But to turn that shit back on overnight for everybody on Earth, that ain't going to happen. It would be a long time, if ever.
Well, yeah, look at Puerto Rico.
I know, poor Puerto Rico. Look what happens when their whole little island ain't got shit. 3,000 people died. Hospitals, generators didn't work. And then this time, hospitals, generators didn't work. Why would you not have a completely foolproof system? In 4 years, why wouldn't you figure out something?
I don't know.
Yeah, make it make sense. This is the problem. All of these things are compounding into, like I said, that's why I named this show Worldwide Wild Weather, because it is getting to the point where you can't even turn away in like massive destruction. 1/3 of Pakistan is underwater. Let's not forget that. That happened a month ago, but they're still drowning and shit's still raining over there. Pakistan.
Crazy.
Like, poor Pakistan. 1/3 of their country is underwater. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of Pakistan, but like the Pakistan people I have no problem with.
No.
It's their government.
Right.
So, just like us, don't hold us accountable for what our government does.
Yeah.
We should not hold the people of Pakistan either. They're our people. The only people we should ever be mad at are countries' governments, never their people. Really, truly, honestly. That's what's wrong, why we have all these wars and shit. Let these big heads fight. Why are we fighting for them? If they want to go stick each other with fucking swords and shit, they sure can. Ride on ponies and fucking, charge each other and shit. Like, that's what they need to do. If world leaders are pissed at each other, they need to get on horses with fucking swords and fucking shank each other to the death. Let's go. Instead of us as peons getting put in the military or getting put in their bullshit.
That's the way they used to fight battles. At least the king and everybody else would actually go into battle.
They would. The king even went too. And if the king died, that was it. Like,
yep.
He knew. So, like, the better man won. Like, legit. So it's like, I'm tired of this.
I am too.
Like, this shit is trash. Supposedly, Angelina Jolie is on her way over to Pakistan right now. The biggest thing they're saying, people are now dying of waterborne diseases.
Because of standing water.
Correct.
Yeah. Yep.
People are getting gastroenteritis, diarrhea, and malaria. And the people who probably died of gastroenteritis probably also died of dehydration. Because gastroenteritis by itself usually doesn't take you out. But if you've been puking for a really long time and aren't getting any good water back in you or electrolytes or anything, then yeah, you'd probably die. They're saying the crisis actually overwhelms the country's health system. People are also dropping from dengue fever, diarrhea, malaria. And supposedly 300 people have died of flood-related ailments since July. Over 500,000 people are still displaced and living in makeshift camps. The death toll has risen to 1,500. I bet you it's triple that. Bet. All these little tiny remote Pakistan towns, they're telling me they know where everybody's at. They lie. They lie. There's like goat herders and stuff who live on mountains. Like, you a lie. You don't know where these people are at.
Right.
You just don't want to tell people how bad it is because then somebody's going to come over there and see what the hell's going on. Like the UN or somebody, WHO, somebody. You know, because their glaciers actually started melting. It was a mixture of rain and then their glaciers melted up in the Himalayas and shit.
So it's more flooding.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Correct.
water will do that. It'll melt ice. So, wow.
Yeah, and they said the floods at one point submerged 1/3 of the nation of 220 million people, destroying more than 1 million homes. 1 million homes.
Sounds like water.
What the hell's going to happen to Pakistan? Like, some shit's about to really happen to them. 1 million people don't have nowhere to live.
Build a boat.
That's a lot of fucking people.
Yep.
We lost 1 million homes in the United States, we'd be in real dire straits.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't imagine in somewhere like Pakistan, where it's like half damn near third world country, that this would not have bigger impacts.
Yeah.
Like, legit. It's very concerning. You know, they said they expect that they would be the financial losses and things from the flood, $30 billion. And they said officials in Sindh province, home to 48 million people, say there's 137,000 cases of diarrhea, 10,000 cases of dysentery, and 4,000 cases of malaria were reported this month.
Well, the only way that's going to go away is you got to get that water moving and you got to purify it and store it. That's the only thing.
Mm-hmm. That's all they can do, or at least try to treat the area, or teach people also proper precautions too. Do not wade in this water. Do not walk in this water.
Right.
You know, if you come in contact with it, you need to try to find a fresh water source to clean your body with. Don't go into the water with cuts or scrapes. You know, like shit that most people aren't going to know. And especially in underdeveloped nations. How much are they telling their people this?
They're not.
You know, I mean, some of these people have never probably even seen toilet paper. Like, I'm not trying to be facetious. I'm just being real.
Right.
Like, so it's just like, what the hell? And that's a lot of people. And they say, you know, the malaria and the gastroenteritis, but gastroenteritis should not be dropping people like that. So they have an issue. They probably don't have IV fluids, IV bags, people to put them in, because that's the only way gastroenteritis is going to kill you.
They're probably dying of dehydration. They can't drink the water.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right, because there's no clean water and there's probably not access to IVs and this and that, because that's the only way gastroenteritis will kill you. Otherwise, it's almost impossible to die just from the gastroenteritis itself.
And that's
just a stomach upset. Like, gastroenteritis is basically like a stomach upset.
Yeah, it's inflammation of your gastrointestinal system. So
right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So it's like, no, that's insane. You know, this one dude says they live in a new makeshift house that they built after their village was swept away. They don't have any other family, so a few people in the village tried to, you know, rebuild.
Yep.
And it's sad because this means especially pregnant women, and then, WHO, people are missing their vaccinations.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like that fucking matters.
No, not when you've got dysentery.
Right.
Dysentery, there's no vaccine for, but you know how we cured that? Proper sanitation.
Mm-hmm.
Diarrhea, I know how you could also fucking cure that. Proper sanitation.
Yep.
Like, what the fuck? The malaria and stuff I get because of standing water and mosquitoes.
Yep.
The dengue fever I also understand because of standing water and mosquitoes. That you really can't help too much. You could maybe try to treat the shit, but then if you treat the water, are you poisoning wildlife too? Like, there's lots of things involved with that, right?
And let me guess.
Do you bomb that shit from the sky? Can you get it on the ground? A lot of these places are remote, inaccessible. Can you even get it there? Lots of logistical problems, right?
And let me guess. A lot of Pakistan's not electrified.
No.
Yeah. Well, then
because a lot of it's remote.
Yeah. Then you're screwed. There's nothing you can do.
That's what I mean. And they said it have, taken out most roads and highways. And now they're treating people on boats because there's no way to drive to these places anymore. So they have to take boats. Like, these are not proper waterways. And then these boats are probably going through there, stirring up disease. Where do people shit? Do they know to shit in a hole, or are they all shitting in the river? Like, that's a thing in some of these countries. They don't understand. You're not supposed to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't be, relieving yourself in the same area where you make food or where you have your water source. And some people might not understand that. And so that's a big problem too. It might not be an issue if you just have like 5 people in your house, but if you're in a refugee camp with 500,000 people, it's going to be a goddamn issue.
That'll be a problem.
Yeah, like 5 people, yeah, you guys might get sick or whatever. Or you guys are honestly probably used to each other's gut biomes if you don't really wash your hands. And if you are kind of shitting where you sleep and where you eat. Like, honestly, the people in your house have a similar gut biome. You have similar bacteria that you digest.
So
that's why, like at home when you have like a septic tank, or like I have a holding tank, like even the septic people told me, like, try not to have people, really come in here using your bathroom a lot, because it can actually change how often, not even how often, but how your tank fills up, and not because it's used to your gut bacteria as a family.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. So it can even like change how like it digests. It might not break down as fast if you add a new person, because their gut bacteria would not be recognized by the rest of the microbiome.
So just put signs in your bathroom in your house that say, please don't poop in my toilet.
Right. I know. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, because I get mine pumped out. But for like people who have like standing septics, where it like fills up over 10 years and then you get it dumped, like they say it can be an issue over time. But I'm sure people who like businesses, it's more of like a money saving thing too. Because I'm sure places like businesses who have septics who have to get pumped, they're not worried about that, So it's like, but they probably do have to pump more often than other people.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. So it's just like, it was very interesting. I was like, I would have never thought that. I mean, who would have known?
So wouldn't you think people, organizations that I won't name, that are worried about world health, that one of the highest priorities would be the electrification of third world countries?
I would think so.
And potable water, which is one and the same. You can't have water and plumbing without electric.
No, you can't.
No.
Or at least, and if there's shit, like I said, are they shitting in like cat holes, or like they just shitting in the river? Like, we need to know what level these people are at, because we can't just be acting like electricity is going to help these people if they do that either.
Well, no,
like, we need to figure out where they're at and meet them there as the government. Like, what the hell? Like, can we get some signs? Can we get some soap to these people? Like, fuck, there's goddamn enough hand sanitizer on this goddamn planet for everybody, and then some. Yeah, tell me there ain't, Tim. It'd be in every store, it'd be on clearance in giant gallon jugs and shit. Send some of that shit over there. Well, that's the time you need hand sanitizer, not here in developed nations where we can wash our hands all the time. That's the place you really need it, because hand sanitizer is highly toxic. But if it's going to be the difference between you getting malaria or gastroenteritis and dying,
Yeah.
They need that shit over there then. Because guess what? You can use that shit without water. And they can rub it in their hand, clean surfaces with it. You know, shit like that. Try to keep the shit clean and sanitize. But they're just living in filth and no one cares. But now everybody's going to go try to help them, supposedly. But here's the thing. It's going to come to a tipping point where everybody's going to be helping everybody else. And we're going to have to like sit and be like, look, we can't help nobody else. And that is where I see this getting to with like, to just think about, like I said, in the last 5 days, Alaska. Oh, and that wasn't even the earthquakes. So there after the storm hit the western coast, interior by Fairbanks, a 6 point something hit Fairbanks, Alaska. So then they had an earthquake. So earthquake, typhoon, which according to my theory of stormquakes, I believe the low pressure would have pushed the low pressure out, and that would have brought it more inland into Alaska, which makes sense. And then boom, seismic episode. Yep. Because where the low pressure is, usually you don't see earthquakes. Like we might not see any earthquakes that are kind of big for a little while over there after this storm goes through. It might skip over that area. And I kind of believe that that's evident with then the 7.6 hit in Mexico. We just had the hurricane that like hit the edge of California a little bit a couple weeks ago. And then now, you know, the remnants of the typhoon up there, I believe that those two low pressure centers kind of kept it out of the central United States, you know, off the coast of between Oregon and California, and brought that seismic energy down to Mexico. And then they got the 7.6, which popped their ass.
Yeah, that's a big quake.
That is a big quake, and nobody's talking about that shit. And they downgraded it, and they keep downgrading all these earthquakes. The other day there was an earthquake in like Taiwan or somewhere. Right after they just had a typhoon, or were about to get the other one, or Merbach just left, the one that hit Alaska, whatever it was. But Taiwan had an earthquake, and at first they said it was a 7.2, then they downgraded it to a 6.9. You cannot do that. Earthquakes are exponential to the level of 10. Therefore, if you drop it that many layers, you're saying that it's like 40 times less strong, 400 times less strong as you keep going down the level of exponentials. That's bullshit. With all the damage they had, that wasn't no 6.
Yeah.
That shit was the 7 that they originally claimed, but the USGS, or the USBS, as Dutchins so fondly called it, and it's stuck for me, have said, and it's not true. So it's just like, you know, I'm over this shit. Like, they don't want to tell us what's happening. They want to hide shit with the earthquakes. They want to hide some of these earthquakes because Dutchins just came out with a ridiculous theory. It's not ridiculous in the sense of it's crazy. It's ridiculous in the sense of holy crap, like this is real. Like, so there's like this theory with like Tartaria about star forts, and like these star forts were areas that generated energy back before the mud flood. Okay. And people believe that one of the latest mud floods was like the late 1800s, early 1900s. And we lost all this knowledge and technology during that time. And yes, Tartaria is very interesting. If you've never looked into it, I highly recommend.
Never heard of it.
Oh, yeah. The Tartarian Empire would have been like modern day Russia to like east of there or west of there, going back, stretching towards Europe. It wasn't like where they claim the Tartarian Empire is in like China. It actually was a little bit like kind of where like Prussia is, and like, but going all the way towards Russia. So that whole area was Tartaria back in the day. And there was a Tartarian Empire.
Wow.
And then all these people just disappeared and nobody knows what happened. But it looks like a huge weather cataclysm happened all over the world. Because if you look at some of these older buildings and look at these older pictures, number one, there's never pictures of people in these pictures of these old buildings and towns and cities, you know, turn of the century. As well as if you notice, like when they were to do like plumbing in Chicago and other places, there was whole stories of buildings underneath the ground.
Really?
With windows and everything. And why would you build a building that was going to be underground with windows? Like before, it was seen to the outside.
Yeah, they were below ground. Yeah.
Yeah. So they just at that time weren't below ground.
Right.
And people have a lot of theories for many buildings like this all across the world. Yes, because how could you build a building like that? You wouldn't. And if they were building all that high tech, and if you look at like the craftsmanship of these buildings and what they were able to accomplish, but they were rolling around in like buggies and shit. Come on now. How could you be that technologically advanced and you're driving in a simple buggy cart? You wouldn't. Yeah. So these people, at some point, the Tartarians were like removed. And then, the surviving people obviously just didn't have the knowledge to rebuild. And that's why we had to go over like in the 1800s and then the Industrial Revolution. But that's how we got so quickly on track, they say, is because some of these, ancient mystery schools and shit had the information and had to bring it back out slowly to the people.
It sounds a lot like Atlantis.
Correct. Yeah. It would be very similar. Wow. Like Tartaria would be like a later incarnation of the level of technology and shit that was in Atlantis. Just be a more modern day recent version. Never heard it. Highly recommend. Oh, I'll look into it. It's been coming up a lot lately, and I've just been, I don't know, I heard about it like 2-3 months ago, and then it made me start looking into it, and then now I've been hearing it everywhere. Like the last 2-3 videos from Dutch Sense, he's been saying something about Tartar or Tartaria, and I'm like, oh shit. Like, even he's on board with it a little bit. Like, there's something to this then. And like he said, he found these star forts everywhere where these earthquakes are occurring. So he's wondering, even if the mechanism isn't there to generate the energy anymore, is it still generating the energy? Because we just don't know how it works. Because just because we don't think it's turned on doesn't mean it's not. Well, yeah, how would we know what on is when we don't even know what the fuck it is? Exactly. Yeah. See, so it's like, because they have found even ancient nuclear reactors in Africa that are old as fuck. How would you have an ancient nuclear reactor? Yeah, you would. I mean, you would say you. How would they know to put that shit in there? Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Unless they were highly civilized, highly intelligent people. They weren't just like clicking rocks together and shit like they try to make history seem like. Well, yeah, now it sounds like the Egyptians too. I mean, they were doing shit we still don't understand. Correct. Yeah. They're saying that, they believe pyramids were actually like sound therapy chambers. Really? And they emitted in a specific frequency. And this is why you would go into the pyramids. Because they have found certain pyramids that had like tuning forks and shit that were placed right outside of a chamber, that the chamber had just like tunnels that went into the room, that somebody would stand on the outside of that room and play these tuning forks that would send the frequency inside the chamber. Wow. Yeah, and they were treating people doing this back in the Egyptian times. Now, how would they know? But they believe that the sound therapies worked for many different maladies. And we now know that resonance frequency using like TENS machines and some of these other crazy, things like iHertz or heliotherapy, Rife technology, we know works. Yeah, multi-wave oscillator. That's all it is resonant frequency of organs in your body, pretty much. So correct. Because we all, operate at a frequency. And they knew their shit back then. How? Huh. Oh, they did. Yeah, see, fair question though, right? Makes you wonder. That's fascinating. Well, see, and that's why all this shit ties together. This is why I think it's all culminating to like, the ultimate thriller in Manila. And we're watching it devolve because like socially, like even if you want to take like, the Christian narrative for it, pretty much sounds kind of like get towards the end. I mean, people are fighting each other. What is good is bad, bad is good. Yep. Everything's up. People on each other. Yeah, like it's like Sodom and Gomorrah all over again, especially with like, the sexuality everywhere and pornography everywhere. And, when you really think about it, if you want to take that narrative from Christianity, Kind of sounds like what the hell's happening right now. Folks will be made fun of for believing in Christ. That shit was said in the Bible. Here we go.
Yeah.
Most people aren't Christian anymore, according to studies.
Yeah.
So when you really think about it, like it happens to fit that time. So, I mean, it could be, and what's been known during every grand solar minimum in the past is that civilizations have fallen. This is what occurs every time. You get to the grand solar minimum, you get to the apex, and then shit just disappears. And like you said, that could be happening because of equilibrium. It's the Earth making balance with itself.
Well, yeah, that's what it's always going to try to do.
Mm-hmm. Especially when you've got crazy people who got shit like CERN and are trying to control like the frequency of the Earth and all these other things that I don't think they even realize what they're doing. They think they know, but do they really know? Like, because I mean, I don't know. Maybe they do, and that's why they do it.
They're going to tear a hole in time and space and
maybe that's what they want, though.
Yeah, well, then, yeah, you're not going to close it, though.
Maybe they don't want to.
Well, I don't want to see what happens when that,
yeah, I don't want to see that either.
Yeah.
Like a spinal stimulator. Exactly. Yeah, see? Like we've figured out ways to use frequencies that have been used for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
And things like Vimanas, how do you explain that? The Hindus created Vimanas. How do you explain that technology? They were flying discs. And this was back in way before anything could fly. And the Nazis recreated the technology and made rockets. How do you like that shit?
A lot of unanswered questions, for sure.
Well, that shit ties together. So, maybe they're trying to make this shit, and maybe that's why they're trying to get people off Earth, because maybe they know that this planet is going to devolve. I don't know. But I do know that I think it's unfair to leave us here on Earth like sitting ducks and not warn the people and give us the fighting chance to survive. If we die trying, fuck it. But we at least deserve to survive.
Well, where are we going to go?
Or at least have a chance to know what we're up against.
We've
got the brightest minds in the world, the biggest computers, the most technology, and we can't figure this shit out.
Where are we going to go? To Mars and fuck that planet up too?
I don't know. But what I do know is, maybe. Yeah, we would go fuck it up because we fucked up here. So yeah, you're right.
Think about it. The people that have all the money and so-called intelligence and the smartest people on the planet are the ones that have all the money and running everything, and they fucked it up. So now they're going to go to Mars, and they're the only ones that are going to be able to go there because they have the money and the power and the technology and the ability to do it, and they're going to leave us here to die.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, they're going to fuck that planet up too.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they will. Eventually they will. If not, just by their presence. I don't think they even know. Maybe they do know, though. Maybe we've been there before already and we just all don't know. That's very possible.
Could be.
They don't tell us what they do on this ISS.
We supposedly can go there anyway, just through some wormhole, some shit.
Right? What if they have that technology already done?
I don't know.
Our Bell always talked to the time travelers. Like I said, that time traveler boy would be alive right now. I want to find him.
Oh, yeah. At the university?
Yeah, Minnesota. Yeah. And they were building that shit when I went for that concert. And that shit tripped me out so bad.
Yeah.
I'll never, I cannot explain how I felt like I was in a wormhole, extreme deja vu. I was and they had all this signage about how they were tearing down the old physics lab to build a new one.
And when's it going to be done?
I don't know, but they started building it 5 years ago, so I can't imagine it was going to be done quickly.
And then that's where that kid was.
Yeah, that's where that kid made the call to Art Bell from in 2030, he claims. That's about 7 years from now.
It's fucking nuts.
And he called before the election of that year because the boy also talks about George Bush being the last elected president. The boy in that call says that because he wants to ask him questions from the future. You know what I'm saying? Because the boy claims he's from the future.
Right.
So, Art Bell always asks people, well, what the hell happens in the future? Because the election was about to happen. It was about to be 2000. And so he asked about Y2K. And the boy was like, Y2K, why does that sound familiar? He's like, I don't remember that. He's like, Y2K, why does that sound familiar? Y2K, Y2K, Y2K. He's like, what happened to Y2K? And he goes, oh, Y2K. He was like, that was that thing with the computers in 1999. And he was like, that ended up not even being a thing. Like nothing went offline, like nothing happened.
Right.
And it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah, it was the BIOS clock and all the computers because they didn't have 4 digits for the year, only 2.
Correct.
So 99 was going to go back to 00.
Right.
Yeah, that's what they thought.
That's what they thought. And nothing ended up happening. And so the boy told Art Bell that because, at that time people were stockpiling waters and all this shit because it was before Y2K. And so, because it was 1999 when the boy called. And so he tells them all this shit. And I heard the story in the future. And a lot of people said George Bush was the last elected president. A lot of people have said that shit for many, many years.
Really?
Like,
so you're saying all the elections have been rigged?
Correct. Or at least planned. Yeah. You don't think they let Trump in there? You really think the people voted in Trump?
I don't know what to think anymore. I really don't.
Yeah, see, I don't know if I believe that. Like, I believe they let him in. And they let him in as long as they wanted to let him in. So then that way, something like coronavirus could pop up. Maybe they didn't know they were going to use it right then, but that's when they did. And then they let that shit happen, and they could blame him on it.
I know Biden didn't get elected. There's just no fucking way.
There ain't no way.
There's no way.
Nobody even really likes him. I can't even find his voters.
Yeah.
Like, I really can't find people that are like, yes, I voted for Biden. I can find people who voted for third parties, Green Party, marijuana parties. I can find everybody else and Trump voters. But I cannot find people who are like, yes, I voted for Biden. Which concerns me because supposedly if more people voted this time than the last time, they should be everywhere then.
Correct.
Much like Trump voters were.
Yeah.
Saying, rah, 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 we win.
Well, if that's true, that's very concerning and scary.
Well, yeah. So I'm just saying. And the boy said a few other things. He said at the time, Congress had been dissolved and that they went to recess and never came back. And that we were basically in a police state at that time where you couldn't even talk or speak out. And that was the reason why he called from the future.
Well, let us know.
Yeah, that shit was going to happen. We would be under extreme police state if we didn't try to stop it.
Did he use a payphone or a cell phone?
No, he used the physics wall in the physics lab at the University of Minnesota that he said was tuned to a specific frequency that you turn on with knobs and shit. And it's like a plasma wall. And knowing that they are building that shit when they were 5 years ago, and I saw them building the new building, that type of technology they could put in that motherfucker.
I gotta go up there with you and check this fucking thing out, man.
Yes, because I'm telling you, this shit has bothered me ever since I saw the show. But then when I went to the Lindsey Sterling concert, my friend had passes, VIP passes, so I got to meet Lindsey Sterling, go backstage, all that. Got to hug her. It was really cool. She's a neat gal. And then we got to like watch her practice and stuff too. It was really neat. And then we got like signed, stuff from her and all that. It was dope. But that's the day I saw it. And I literally stopped in my tracks and my friend was like, "What's wrong with you?" And I was like,
yeah, right. You don't want to know. Yeah.
And I explained it to her because, she was crazy like me. So she would like believe that shit. And I was like, dude, I was listening to an Art Bell show. And this boy said he called from the new U of M physics lab that wasn't built too long before this. And now they're building this shit now. And probably about the time it'll be done, knowing like, construction deadlines and this or that would probably be if we go from 2018 to 2028 would be 10 years. And that's not crazy. And the boy called in 2030 and said it was a new physics lab. And I was like, that would fit.
7 years.
Well, you think that, from now.
Right. From now.
But yeah, at the time, it would have been about 10 years when I saw the thing.
Right.
And they were had just scraped out the foundation. There was still parts of the 100-year-old physics building still intact there. So they would have to probably get all that out still yet before they were even going to start.
That's nuts.
Yeah. And they had all this history on the side of like, because they had it all fenced off because it's like in the middle of the college, you know? And so they had it all fenced off, obviously, so you don't like hurt yourself. But like they had all the history of like the physics lab and blah, 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 and why they're going to build a new one and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my God. Like, because the boy called in 1999. Shit.
Right. Well,
So how would anybody have known that now would be building a new physics lab that would fit in time to when he claimed he called in the future?
Yeah.
How the fuck would you can't make that shit up?
30 years later, 31 years later. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't make that shit up. You wouldn't have known if they were going to build a new physics lab by then or not.
No, and the timing's too close.
Too fucking close for comfort.
Yeah.
That they were, starting to get this building ready to go. And then, obviously had to do renderings on the front of what it's supposed to look like when they're done and all this other shit. But I was like, oh, just think of the technology by the time they're done with this that they could put in that motherfucker. Like, right. Oh my God, like there's a little plasma wall. And he said these little plasma walls were in military installations around the world and like high education facilities and shit.
Really?
Correct. That's what the boy said. Now, can we know if the boy is true or not? I don't know. But I keep telling the story because the boy's name was Jameson, and that wasn't a popular name, and it is a super fucking popular name now. There are tons of little boys named Jameson here. Tons.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Tons. So it's like that wasn't a popular name 20 years ago even, and you know what I mean? Even if you want to go back to 1999, that wasn't a popular name, nor would have anybody predicted that would be a popular name. But now, like, every little boy has that name. So it's like, no, that could be very possible.
7 more years. So he's got to be about 11, 12, 13 years old right now.
I would assume, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that pretty soon he'll be old enough and... but I'll be interested to see if when we get to because he said about 2029, 2027-ish is when Congress just disbands and never comes back.
And when's this?
Like he said like 2027 because he said at that time it had been like 3 or 4 years that Congress had been dissolved when he called in 2030. And he was saying that he knew as far in the future as up to 2035. And that's all he could really talk about. Because like he said, he was in 2035, but went back to 2030 to make this call back into 1999.
So if that's true, the last presidential election is going to be 2024.
No, because because it's Congress that disbands.
Yeah, but
there's still a president. Like he said, there's been no elected president since George Bush. He said that would be the last elected president that will actually be like truly elected. That isn't just selected is what he meant.
I get that. Yeah, but
right. And so Congress disbands later. And he said Congress had been gone for like 4 years. They just disappeared. And then this police state came to try to keep the peace and keep everybody under control because we literally had no functioning branch of government besides the president.
Yeah. Who would be a dictator at that point?
Exactly. Anybody at that point, you'd almost have to because people's confidence would be shot. Really think about that. Congress has disbanded. They do not exist anymore.
That's what I'm saying. So 2024 could be the last presidential election.
Yeah, it could be where we have our whole government intact.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely true.
That's pretty fucking scary.
And the way we feel about it, we've already kind of been feeling is this the beginning of the end.
Well, if things keep going the way they are, this final election, the midterms are going to be a clusterfuck, and the presidential election, that might cause enough problems to disband Congress 3 years later and say fuck all of you. This is crazy. It might destroy our system. It's pretty scary.
Well, you've never met any Jamesons because they'd be like little young boys. Like all my friends who have little kids and little ones are named Jameson.
I haven't met one.
So that's probably why they're like 10, 11, 12. Right. Like when the year my son was born, that was a super popular name because me and a friend were pregnant at the same time. And that's what she was going to name her child if it was a boy, but it didn't end up being a boy.
Well, you could have named
it ended up being a girl.
You can name a girl Jameson.
You could. Yeah, I don't see why you couldn't. But she just had 2 names picked out.
Got it.
One for a girl, one for a boy, and it wasn't a boy. So she just didn't use that one. So it was just like, But yeah, so but around then is when it got really ultra popular. Ultra popular.
So
And
that
it wasn't too long after that that I was listening to Art Bell 24/7 because there was a period in my life for like 2 to 3 years. Literally, that's the only thing I listened to. But every time I listened, I would be brought to something new that I needed to fucking know for like 2 years. It was so fucked up. I could not turn it off, but that's all I could watch. I did not watch the news. I did not consume anything else. I did not see anything else. Literally, all I knew about was Art Bell.
is that university really into physics?
Yeah, the University of Minnesota has its own physics lab. The University of Minnesota is a very high-tech school as far as like for math. It's very well-rounded. They've got, medical, type programs, but science, they are heavy on there because there's a lot of agricultural science. A lot of the fucking sciences are there. So it wouldn't surprise me that physics would be a big deal.
Oh man, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm. But it's a very well, because I don't know anything that really the U of M specializes in. Like other schools specialize in certain majors, but it's pretty well rounded there. So
You know what we have to do? You and I have to find this Jameson kid and get on the phone call with him when he calls Art Bell back in 1999.
that would be dope as fuck.
Wouldn't that be the shit?
I gotta find out the day of the call because it's hard to find out this information. But a friend of mine, a couple years ago, came across this shit on Reddit and found a part of the clip from the boy.
Uh-huh.
Because that was the problem, is like the way that you get these Art Bell episodes, you can't like download them or anything. Like they're playing on a tune-in radio station and they play one right after the other. So it's not like you can pause, go back, what was that, anything. It's just playing.
They're not archived where you can't download them?
I don't think they go back that far anymore. Maybe there might be some place to purchase them in the old archives, but no. Art Bell did sell many copies of his archives back in the day, so they are possible to find. And people lately have been starting to put their collections online that they saved from the 90s.
Yeah,
that they got all these, cassette tapes with it on there.
Yeah, I know people that got shit from the 70s and they still got it. So
yeah, because like I said, Art Bell sold a lot of his shows like in box sets, like through the phone, like you used to buy everything.
TLS says we're going to destroy the planet because we created Paradise.
And it was like, it was expensive back then. It was like $200 or some shit.
Oh yeah, I know.
But you got like the whole collection, and he only did that for a while. So I don't know how many collective people have it across the United States and will still have it. I don't know. I would hope they would still exist because I'd like to get my hands on them at one point. Because he had so much goddamn information. Like, I'm surprised they let him be on as long as he did. But I feel like some fucking shit happened to Art Bell. And nobody wants to admit that because he was having attacks at his property and shit before he died and shit. So I don't know. They always say nothing happened, but I feel like something happened.
Oh, come on. No, nothing happened.
Art Bell said he would never come back when he left until some big shit happened. And then he came back with Midnight in the Desert, the year that my daughter was born, in 2015.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. I actually got to tell Art Bell, though, that I was listening to Art Bell in the delivery room. Like, the doctors were asking, what the hell is that noise? I said, look, that's Art Bell playing. I need my Art Bell. Okay, he just came live. It was the week he started back, so there was no way I was missing that shit. Like, I was no. In the delivery room listening to Art Bell. And I'm like, everybody, shh, I need to hear this. Like, Art Bell.
Wow.
Yeah. They were like, what the hell is that? I was like, it's Art Bell. And I was like, he's the greatest man that ever was in radio. Like, legit. Art Bell's my hero.
Huh.
Yeah, I love Art Bell. And his shows are still as enlightening today as they were when he did them, because it's all this like mysterious, mystical. He wrote the book, The Global Coming Superstorm, with Whitley Strieber, which I should buy that and actually read it because I've never read it. But that actually is the basis of the Day After Tomorrow movie, right? Right.
Wait, is that the guy that got abducted by the aliens?
Whitley Strieber? Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. But Whitley Strieber and Art Bell wrote the book, The Global Coming Superstorm, talking about this exact shit that's happening to us right now in his book many years ago.
You're freaking me out, man.
That's why I said we need to do the show. The show needs to be done because all this shit ties together and we're getting to like the crux head point. And then what does that mean for us?
Trouble.
Very trouble. Would we cause a paradox? I don't know if we cause a paradox. That's if the paradox theory is real. Damn it, TLO, stop trying to ruin our time travel dreams.
I get all right. Okay, we don't have to get into phone conversation or plasma conversation, but we can watch it.
Well, yeah, maybe we could go down there and try to find the little plasma wall and shit.
We'll just hide in a corner and wait till he comes up.
Yeah, let's do. I wonder if we could like sign up for classes or something and like be in the little physics lab or something. I don't know. Shit, there's got to be something we could do. But I'm telling you, I want to see this shit. I want to see how this shit works. But I don't know for sure if there is a paradox theory. If the paradox theory is real, then we would fuck it up. But if it's not real, then we just saved humanity. Just saying. Just saying. So, because if we could prove that we went back in time, no, the government would snatch us up though. If we could prove we went back in time, though, they would. They wouldn't let us. They wouldn't let us talk about it. There's no way. Because, you know, there's all these people who claim there's like, you know, all these time travel police and all sort of shit. So I don't know if we'd be able to. I think the government would try to snatch us if we were able to. Because we can't tell anybody about it because then people would know it's real. Then what? They can't have that.
Nope.
So, yeah, I don't know. Do we want to go to the gulag forever, Tim? I mean. Just saying. I don't know if they let us be together. So just saying.
Yeah.
Like, at least if we could be together, like stranded on a desert island or something, it might be all right. But if we don't get that deal.
If we know about it, they know about it. That's for damn sure.
Well, that's just it.
Yeah.
And they know a lot more about it. I don't think I have watched The Time Machine.
Good. It depends on which one you're talking about, but they're all good. There was one made about years ago. It was pretty good.
What's that? I haven't seen that. Who's in that, TLO?
I can't remember.
TLO will tell us. Like I said, he's our resident movie expert. He can have his own show like Siskel and Ebert. Like, he's seen so many movies, owns thousands of movies, like, movie expert.
So let's just say this, the paradox thing in that. So if the government stops this kid from making that plasma call, then did it ever happen?
Ooh, good point. Good point. Now, could there be a ripple in time because the boy came out on the show at the time that Art Bell did it? Now, that could be possible.
Yeah, Guy Pearce. Yep, that's right.
Because they could have went in into the future and found him and did something to him to try to change his timeline, which could be why we have changed timelines here and Mandela effect. Very possible. Like, if you want to go into paradoxes and bullshit and timelines and multiple timelines, parallel timelines, very possible. Because Art Bell had a whole dedicated time traveler line that he opened quite often on his show.
Yeah, it was open most of the time, wasn't it?
A lot of the times towards the end, it was. Like, in the beginning, he only did it every once in a while. And then he would do, other ones like the devil line, he'd fuck around, on Halloween and Ghost to Ghost and shit like that. But the most popular one was the time traveler line. And many time travelers called in. And I have somewhere notes that I wrote down at the time because I'm not into like dictation or any of that shit. I got to write shit down if I'm listening to something and I want to remember it. And I wrote it down, and I was writing down at the time all these different time travelers because some of their stories were intersecting at the time. Now, it was taking like 6 months, a year to hear some of these stories because, like I said, you didn't get to pick what order the shows were played in. You didn't get to pick just what was the luck of the draw. And so I just happened to collect and be listening at the right times. Because like I said, half the time I'd listen to it while I was sleeping. It's not like I heard what was saying then, but I would just happen to be awake and they'd be saying this shit. And I'd be like, holy shit. Like, holy shit. Like, and so, like I said, some of their timelines cross. So I don't know. They could probably go back and fuck with them. And then that shit never happened. And then we get to that point and something else happens. Very possible. That type of shit has been highlighted in that show I was telling you about, Eureka.
Yeah.
They have a whole time travel whole situation. And a bunch of paradoxes and timelines and wormholes and shit. That's half what the show's about in the later seasons.
Yeah.
So, very possible. And this show has the DOD in it and shit. And so, and a lot of government entities, and base a lot of facts on real shit and factual shit that happened in history. So I can't imagine that what they were talking about wasn't correct with this time travel and how they say they're able to do it, the technology for it. It all makes sense. And I mean, this show was 2007. So just saying.
Crazy.
Yeah, and there's shit that we know now that we didn't know then. Like they were talking about maybe we'll find the Higgs boson particle. Well, we found that shit. You know, and they were talking about the Hadron colliders and using that to find the Higgs boson particle and why that was important.
So let's play more mind-bending shit. So if the government catches this kid and stops him from making that plasma call to Art Bell, then wouldn't that change our line of reality? And therefore, if they stop him, it never happened?
Maybe, potentially. But could they stop him when it already happened in time previously?
Yeah, 1999.
Right. I don't know. Wouldn't they have to go back to 1999 when he made the call and stop him? But how would we have heard it in this timeline? Does that mean that call would just disappear then? We'd never be able to find it again? Because it is pretty much scrubbed from the internet. It's really hard to find. Like I said, a friend of mine sent me a clip, but it's not the whole clip. It's only a portion of the call. It's not a full, complete portion because there's a bunch of shit he does not mention that is not in there. And I remember this call like direct word for word.
So they could have caught him and
rechanged it that way. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's possible. Because why in the future now it sounds different than it did at the time. And like I said, it's one of very few calls that I remember word for word, but it literally struck my attention because the boy said he was Jameson and he was from this year. And I was like, he'd probably be born right now. I was like, he'd probably be born right now. And there's a bunch of kids named fucking Jameson being born. What the shit? It was like every like basic pumpkin spice white girl's kid's name that year. I mean it. So that's why it like really piqued my attention because I was like, this is the first time in history that this name has been extremely popular. What are the fucking chances? And then if you calculate from now till 2030, that kid would be born right now. So what the hell?
Yep.
And then after that, I show up at the U of M and see that they're building a new physics lab. Kid says he's in a new physics lab. What the hell?
That would have freaked me out.
I've been freaked out for years over that shit. That shit is the only time traveler call, you know, like I've heard the Madman Markums and all that. And he also had, who was that other popular time traveler, TLO? Damn, why can't I think of his name? He was so popular and everybody always talked about him when they talked about Art Bell and time travelers and they could never prove he was real. But he had a lot of anomalies like posting in like chat boards back in the day and talk about shit that he couldn't have known about but knew about on these chat boards. And so that's how he proved to people like he was, John Teeter. There we go, John Teeter.
Crazy.
He used to call in a bunch on Art Bell. And then nobody knows who he was, or was he a time traveler, was he not? Highly recommend looking into that. Madman Markham claimed that he built a time machine, and then all of a sudden Madman Markham disappeared.
Well, yeah, he would, actually.
You would, because like if he actually was able to do it, like boom, he gone. But he was talking to Art Bell about how he was building it and all this other shit because like Art Bell was super into time travel because he was like, if time travel ever existed, it would have to exist now. Because the linear way of time, at some point, if somebody figured it out, it would be figured out for all of time.
Huh.
Yeah, so I was like, he got a good point though, because like if somebody's going back in time from the future, that means it would have to exist, like at this point in time.
Yeah.
So like in some degree or capacity, whether we can like reach that or not, doesn't matter. The fact that it would exist somewhere in some timeline.
Yeah.
And people are using it to move back and forth in time.
Yeah.
Which I do believe that it could be possible. And, you know, especially learning about, you know, these particle physics and shit and exotic particles and all these things, possible. I mean, there are ways to take exotic particles from one place and send them to another. So if they could find a way to dissolve all of our exotic particles in our human body and then ship them, it would be possible.
Like Star Trek shit?
Yeah. Like beam me up, Scotty shit. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh.
Mhm.
Crazy. I think they did
And
that.
they talk about all this science in this Eureka show. So I'm telling you, I highly recommend you watch it because honestly, I feel like this was like a playbook by the government. Like, yeah, it's a fictional show, but all the shit they're talking about is the correct and true science. It's not bullshit science they're talking about. It is the correct and true particle science. It's the correct particle physics. It's the correct mechanisms, the correct shit they're talking about. Because this town is supposed to be a town of super intelligent scientists that's off the grid that nobody knows about, that no one else can access but these people who work for this third party organization that's kind of run by the DOD but isn't. DOD kind of oversees shit, but they run their own, private sector shit.
Like DARPA.
Like DARPA. It is like ultimate DARPA though. The shit they're making, DARPA ain't got shit on, and they say that in one of their episodes.
Do they really?
Yes, they do. That's why I was like, oh, this show is like telling us without telling us because people don't realize. And at the time, they would have just thought this shit was super fantasy because half of this shit didn't exist, but it does now. Like I said, his Higgs boson particle wouldn't even have been found at the time this show came out. And Higgs boson particle is found. And they, like I said, they talk about the specific, CERN hadron colliders, why you needed bigger hadron colliders, why you needed to spin the particles a certain way to try to get the Higgs boson, because then that's going to help teach about antimatter and blah, blah, blah. The same shit that it came out that is true. And that's happened with a lot of topics on this show that make me be like, what the fuck?
And that show's from 2007.
Correct.
What?
And it was on for 4 years.
Wow.
There's like 5 seasons or something like that. I'm on season 4. I'm almost done with season 4, and then I got season 5, and then I'm done. And then they made like a little spin-off show called Warehouse 13, which is kind of the same people, but not the same people. But there's a few characters that come from, and they've already shown you who they are now in Eureka. Like we got to see one of the chicks like 8 episodes ago that comes from Warehouse 13. So then that's the connection where you finally see, and then eventually it'll probably spin off. But it's interesting. Like I said, there's all types of time travel, science, secret government projects. It's got everything in this show. And it's supposed to be like a lighthearted kind of comedy show. So I could see why people don't think it's real. But the science that they're talking about is 100% real. They're not just like gibbering when they're talking.
I'll have to check it out. Like Doctor Who or whatever.
Yeah, like Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And me and TLO were talking about this. People have said that there is a great similarity to Doctor Who because every episode is like independent from each other, but there are like overarching story arcs throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, right.
So it's very Doctor Who like.
They're connecting dots, but not all the time.
Right. Like you might see it like 3-4 episodes down, you know what I mean? But each episode you might be like watching them do something else.
Right.
And then they'll tie it back in later. Or certain storylines now have went over 2 seasons, so it's like it just kind of depends, but it builds on itself, and it's a really good show. Like I can't say enough about it. Like just for entertainment purposes alone, it's a good show. But when you actually watch it like as a nerd conspiracy theorist, there's too much shit in that show that they knew what they were telling people. Like they weren't lying, they weren't bullshit. Like they just told it all because it's supposed to be light, funny, haha, lighthearted show. But you watch it and they tell you all their little dirty secrets and details. Like I said, they were joking about they had more shit than DARPA and their shit was more secret and they gave that shit to DARPA years ago and blah, 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 and they had already done it and blah, blah, blah. Like, bro.
Whoa.
Yeah. So it's like, oh shit. And like they talk about like Einstein and like he was like the one who basically like founded this town and like all this shit. So like what if something like that does exist?
Probably does.
I could see it. How hard would it be to hide a whole town from people? Because they have it like electronically shielded where like you couldn't get in if you were an outsider.
Right.
So I could see it.
Mm-hmm.
And all the EMF technology and weapons that they create in the show and all this shit, like, oh my God, it's so real. Like, it's fucked up because we actually have a lot of this shit now. Yeah, and like they're trying to go to Titan in the show. And there's a lot of shit about space travel and all this shit, which is very reminiscent of like SpaceX now. Because there was no private company doing anything then. But this is very similar to what SpaceX is doing now. The same technologies, the same type of thrusters, the same type of shit they're using. That they'd be able to increase payload and bring people and all the shit. Like, how would they have known that? Unless somebody at the government was like, put this shit on your show and here's the correct science.
It's crazy.
So they're not just going to let you blabber on about science that's not correct and true, especially when your show is wrapped up a lot in the DOD and government stuff.
Huh.
Department of Defense isn't going to let you have some bullshit show.
No.
They're not.
No.
They would shut that shit down so quick you wouldn't even be able to put it on TV. And
Yeah.
so obviously they got permission from the DOD to say this shit.
All right.
And you know, show their office in that light. You know, I mean, in one of the episodes, they give up a prisoner to the company and was like, they're under your full jurisdiction now.
Wow.
Yeah, like just signed over a person, like a whole ass person. Wait till you watch the show. It's fucking good. Like I said, I'm like hundreds of episodes in now. So like, but watch it. And like the first episode had me like, whoa.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, holy shit. Like we're about to see some shit. And I was right. So just saying.
All right. I will check it out.
You should. What's TTM?
I don't know.
Oh, that time machine. Or Snowpiercer tonight. Yeah. Snowpiercer is a good one. They have it, I think, even on Pluto TV for free, Tim.
Yeah, they do. I've seen it.
Have you? Yeah, watch that shit.
Okay.
It's fucked up. Like the first time I watched it, I had rented it or we like saw it in theater or something. And it was like me and Mr. Tire just like we watched it and then we both just like looked at each other and was like, that could actually happen. Like the government would do that to us. That's how it would go down. That's how we felt. Like it was so messed up. Wow. And there's like, oh, it's so deep. Like it's raw. Like it's so watch it. Because see, I'm not a spoiler person, so I don't like to give spoilers. So I don't like to talk about story arcs or none of that shit because I'm not a spoiler person.
Right.
I don't like to ruin it for people.
Yeah, I
want you to like watch it and get your own opinion, but like I'm just saying,
all right.
You know, it's good though. Like it's good. Highly recommend. But we got to just look out for each other though, because I think that's the overarching, way to tie the whole thing together tonight is we got to watch out for each other because government's not going to watch out for us.
Nope.
Most people aren't even watching out for each other in their own communities. No, like we've been saying for a really long time, we're just going to have to deal with smaller, like-minded communities.
Yep.
There's not going to be this mass awakening of which we hoped. Of all the people waking up to what's happening. Like there is a slow awakening that always occurs. But I think as these larger cataclysms keep arising and keep creating mass destruction, we're just going to have to focus on small groups and having those small groups take care of each other.
Right.
I think that's the only way. The only way that it'll be sustainable, scalable, and a way that people can try to just stay out of the spotlight, as shit gets worse.
Right.
They're already talking about one of our former hosts who used to be with us on Freedom Revolution Network and on Freedomizer, Evie, was saying that her husband works for Frito-Lay, and word on the street is that the large retailers are not going to be getting their Christmas shipments for goods and items. So if you are planning to Christmas shop for kids, family members, things of that nature, you might want to start now because there may not be deliveries coming for Christmas due to the fact that they already had backlog, in merchandise and they're already storing all this stuff. They don't really have room for anything else and they're not going to throw this merchandise away either. Right. So they might not be getting any more shipments for goods and items at a lot of different stores. Also, I read it is an intense and brutal movie. Like it is. It's brutal. It's rough, bruh. Oh, hits the soul. But I read a post today that somebody was talking about all the businesses that have closed recently, and how basically like the luxury industry in the United States and worldwide has literally collapsed. Like Chanel has stopped producing items. Hermes has stopped production.
Really?
Yes. They're no longer making items. As well as, I mean, it was a list of like 30 different stores and chains that have closed. They said a total of 20,000 stores will close this year.
I believe it. They just pushed too far with the shutdown.
That was the whole point. Airbnb said 12 years of their work was dissolved in 6 weeks.
Yep.
Where they might not recover.
You can't recover.
No, unless you're a giant business that's going to get bailed out, that's it.
Yep.
And so where does that leave the rest of us as we watch the whole infrastructure around us and all the businesses, all the restaurants, all the supportive businesses for our community fall by the wayside due to these regulations? And then we literally have nothing besides mega retailers. Because that's what's happening in small towns all around the country. Even in my little town, stores are closing left and right. Well, new things are opening, but other things are closing.
Yeah, but even if you are a mega retailer, you still have to buy your stuff from somebody, which
and that's true too. And some of them are closing too. You know, I mean, Bed Bath and Beyond.
Right.
You know, there's a bunch of places that are downsizing for stores. That is true. But this list was so long and so extensive, and it just took me back because I was like, I guess I haven't paid attention because I haven't really cared about those things. Right. But they're probably right. Who is buying all these things? And then the rest of the businesses that, you know, got hit hard, especially like in the entertainment industries or the hospitality industry, you know, small mom and pop hotels, things like that. People probably went broke.
Oh, yeah.
You had no one staying.
No, you can't. When this happened, you know, I'm kind of, I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm kind of grateful or relieved that I was destroyed with my business because my business wouldn't have survived.
Right.
You can't be shut down for a year or 2 years with no income stream and expect to stay open. It's impossible.
Well, it is because, I mean, especially when they had all the restrictions on businesses, you couldn't even go out to eat anymore.
Yeah.
All you could do is curbside bullshit.
Yeah, you're limited to your sales income. When your expenses, you got an upside down balance sheet or income and expense sheet. Your expenses are still going to be way higher because they don't change. But your
I couldn't even buy toys for my kid because every other freaking store had regulations at that point because my son's birthday was in April of that year. Okay. And every store had regulations. Remember when they had the tape in the aisles and certain shit you couldn't buy and bullshit? I had to go to a specialty toy store who was allowed to do phone orders only. And they were doing delivery at that time. That way they could bypass it, you know, some of the rules of having people go there. And they delivered it to me wrapped and all that. But I had to order through that was the only way I could get toys. You could not get toys any other way.
Yeah, we're in big trouble, man.
We cannot. And if this type of regulations or something else happens like this during one of these cataclysms, it's going to be epic. And that's what we're going to need to be ready and watching out for, because I feel like that setup is coming. Because as soon as it gets so bad where they can't control it, you know, I mean, a storm like the size of almost of Alaska, like they said, the storm was almost as big as the whole of Alaska, and it was bigger than Texas.
Damn.
If something like that hit the United States, or even bigger, if we get one of these storms that are the whole country wide, which we're getting pretty close. You know, some of these models are looking like the whole Atlantic is one big ass storm and shit lately. So if we get to that point, basically like the point of no return on some of these storms, and we get like the mega storm, we are going to be screwed and chopped because nobody has planned for this. Nobody knows how to do massive scale.
Nope.
This is why Pakistan's struggling. because 1/3 of it was underwater. Don't nobody plan for half your third of your country to be underwater. Ain't nobody plan for that.
Nope.
Nor would anybody. Why would you? Because you can't logistically plan out that exercise. You can plan out small shit, small mass casualty exercises, this or that. You could talk about what you could maybe do large scale, but as far as like large scale plans, those don't exist in emergency management. And people don't realize that. People think, oh, the government has it under control. They know what they're doing. They plan for this. They're the professionals. No, they haven't, because this big ass shit, there's no way you could make an exercise to plan out or even demonstrate what would occur if that occurred.
Not on a macro level, no.
Not on a macro level. On a micro, yes, but not on the macro. And so therefore, nobody's ever ready when this shit occurs. And so how can we ever be ready or trust these people to tell us what's going on or to help us, save us, protect us, anything at this point? We're all on our own. The weather's getting worse and we need to do something.
You said it. You're all on your own. That's it right there.
It's sad. Like it's awful. It shouldn't be like that. The government should have our backs, and they should be in lockstep with the people and be like, "What should we all do? Like, we should do something." Like, but no, because they're too afraid. That they told people that they'll have storm fatigue, and so we can't tell people because people get tired of hearing about it, and then it doesn't hit their area. So we don't even want to tell people until 2 days before. Well, how the hell does that help people prepare? Who the hell got money 2 days before something? Ain't nobody even got money in their bank accounts now. And you expect people to buy supplies or get ready or prepare themselves in 2 days. How?
Yep.
What if it's not payday week? What if we ain't got no money? Like, how did that help me? When they know a lot of these storms a week in advance. Like this one that's about to hit Florida. We see it now. Okay, it may or may not happen. It may not develop into anything, but what it's showing us, if everything stays the same, that it will. So why aren't we telling the people from Florida this week that, hey, you're probably going to get a category 3 to 4 hurricane next week. And so you might want to put some shit away, get some water, go to the store, make shit work. Because in a week, you might be getting ready for the real deal.
Right.
What's wrong with just telling people that? I just don't understand why the government thinks people are that sensitive that you couldn't just tell them, hey, put up a few things. It may or may not happen. You don't have to say the world's going to end. It's going to be a category 5, worst storm ever. Like, no one said you had to do that. All you have to do is tell these people, hey, we could have some serious weather, that could put people out for a few days. So, let everybody just be prepared. If you want to look over your hurricane kits, go over your hurricane preparedness plan for your family, practice what you're going to do.
Yeah.
What's wrong with saying that? That's being proactive. Shit, you talk about fire drills and tornado drills and shit, but we can't talk about hurricane drills or earthquake drills. I just don't understand. Like, it just does not make sense to me, especially when storms have winds and bullshit for 10 plus hours and all this other shit. People aren't ready for that. We got to get people ready for that, but we got to not just keep everybody in the dark. Like, we are not mushrooms. You can't just keep us in the dark and feed us bullshit.
They're going to try.
They are. So we just have to stay proactive, stay on top of it, try to get as much data and information and share it with as many people as we can. Much like this show. Share this show with people you know, people you care about, people you want to hear this information, because it is happening. Regardless of how people want to quantify it or say it is or isn't, it's happening. And we're seeing it everywhere. And in the last 96 hours, across even our, not the, continental U.S., but in 2 of our territories, we've watched their ass get whooped by 2 giant storms at the same time.
Yep.
Like within hours of each other hitting. And like I said, there's still warnings right now for hurricane force winds up there off the coast of Alaska for the maritime sections. So you can't tell me this is over for some of these people. And we haven't heard any news, no news out of Puerto Rico or Alaska.
Right.
And that means they are decimated. And guess what? By the time they want to talk about them, the news cycle will have already changed. And so hopefully here we at Freedom Revolution Network try to keep the eye on that cycle, and we don't have to go to the official narrative news cycle. And we'll try to bring as many stories, concerns, weather updates as we can. I'm going to start trying to go live, especially when we're getting severe weather outbreaks, because I think that's going to help people the most. at this point too, because a lot of these severe weather events are popping out of nowhere. Giant hail, tornadoes spinning up. The other night in Illinois was pretty wild for people. We just got to be ready for everything and anything and all the things.
All right. Well, on that note, I'm going to back out and go to bed.
All right. Yeah, no, and I'm probably going to shut it down myself here. We've been here for about 2 hours, and I feel like I said what I needed to say for tonight about these topics. And I appreciate you being here with me, Tim. As always, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, well, you fascinated me and kind of got my head spinning here with all this stuff, which is extremely hard to do.
I know.
But it makes me think and want to do my homework and research to figure this shit out. So
yeah, because there's a whole pattern of this shit that's starting to like click and really make sense to me. Like I said, with all these moving parts, I've always been a big picture person.
Right.
And so sometimes I do miss the small minutia of regular daily life.
Mm-hmm.
But big picture, super good at. And I've always been good at being able to figure that out and see it laid out and see how the dots connect. And that's what I think we need to teach people how to do, to realize where we're at now and where we're going, because it's not going to be good. It's already bad. I've already went through multiple storms this year I didn't want to go through. Violent storms.
Mm-hmm.
I went through that PDS tornado outbreak that ripped up Ferreta, in some of our church members' homes. One of our church members was crouched in the basement with his little dog thinking he was going to die.
Oh, my God.
I know. And now he takes his little dog everywhere, including to church, and we don't say nothing to him because, he's Joe. And so why would we say, you know what I mean? At this point, we were just like, dang, we're glad you're here, man. Like, we're glad you showed up. Like, and we went out and helped him and picked up his house and things like that, a couple weekends ago. I didn't go, but Mr. Chire went. And we got some really good apples from him, from his tree. That's what he paid everybody in, was apples. But, hey, they were actually really good apples. So I only got like 2 bags of them, so they were really good. But this is the type of stuff we're going to have to do, because our communities are just going to keep getting battered and hit and hit and hit and hit and hit. And we're going to have to rebuild and rebuild and rebuild. And so we're going to have strong minds, because it's only going to get worse from here. Remember that storm the night we were talking that I was like, oh, it might hit you. But then the mudslides and shit happened in Estes Park. And flooding occurred.
Yep.
A giant foot of hail.
Yep.
So this is going to keep happening to people. The fires that occurred in Boulder before you move back out there, I'm sure you've seen the burn scars now that you've been living out there.
Yeah.
But that fire was insane. That fire was happening literally as Mr. Chire and I were on the road to go pick up the dog.
Man, I'll tell you something. Somebody in the Podbean chat room knows a lot about what you're talking about. I'm just reading the comments because I haven't been paying attention to them. Unbelievable. NASA going to Mars.
Yep.
And the Tartarian Empire. He's saying a bunch of shit about that.
Yeah, see? People are smart out there. He's a smart guy.
Yeah, he said we went to Mars in 1964.
I bet you we did. See? Telling you.
By 1967, using creative vortexes in the Great Lakes, Illinois training base, which is I know exactly where that's at. That's in Glenview, Illinois.
See?
Called 20 years back. This guy's talking about everything we fucking talked about with detail.
Hell yeah. Oh, now I want to go see what was said over there.
Yeah, you should go in the chat room here on Podbean. This Chris Wilson, he's fucking... I wish I was paying attention, but I was too busy engaging with you because of this stuff. And I'm like, what the fuck? It's towards the end of the chat. It's crazy. He said he was on George Norrie show. Damn. You seeing that shit? Or did you go?
Yeah, so I appreciate all the good listeners out there and people who are about and smart, and we appreciate you, and I hear you, and I can't see your comments, but I'm sure you're definitely on point with this and you understand where I'm coming from, which is nice. And a change of pace. Sometimes I think I'm crazy when I get on these rants, man. But then people like him like support my craziness, so I appreciate that.
Yeah. Oh, people wanted to call in. I really should have paid attention. I was paying attention to the chat room on Freedom on StreamYard.
Yeah, I was too. But maybe what we can do for the people on Podbean, I would be willing to do this. How about Thursday night, so not tomorrow, but Thursday night, we could do like a follow-up Q&A call-in show where people can talk about what they wanted to talk about and call in and interact with us.
Yeah, because that's some people wanted to call in, and this guy here, he said red pill and co-host, which I'm the co-host on your show tonight. I said that. Extreme weather conditions we are experiencing nationwide, worldwide, are results of HARP technology developed.
Now HARP is juicing it, though. That is true.
Yeah.
That is what's creating more of the albedo effect that we're seeing in the oceans, which is creating more water in the atmosphere besides all the water that got shot into the atmosphere when Tonga exploded. So that's an issue. So because they are using these atmospheric arrays in certain places to juice up these storms, I do believe they could be using them on Puerto Rico while they keep getting hit. We know that they've used these type of arrays and also geothermal venting, which also kind of attracts storms in Texas during Hurricane Harvey. That's what made that storm stop and just literally go stationary. So yes, there is a lot of interference with HARP, geomagnetic arrays, and that also has to do with the grand solar minimum and some of the effects we're getting down here on Earth. Not that they're trying to mitigate, but they're almost trying to amplify.
I'll tell you what, and then I'll stop reading comments because now this guy's got me fascinated. I wish I would have read these.
Get it together.
He says there are 131 nuclear power plants. 5 have been deactivated. Then he names them all. Nuclear power plants backup fuel is just 2 days worth of diesel fuel. This is right here. Listen to this shit. When the utility grid is shut down mid-spring 23, every nuclear power plant in the U.S. will explode into a nuclear bomb, and cores will be pile-driven downward 1 mile deep into the earth. Nuclear radiation is 150 miles from core and 250 miles in every direction. What the fuck?
Now, I could see that happening because it happened in Fukushima. So, I mean,
meltdown is what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it would. Okay, now, the interesting thing about that is I actually know there is some truth and levity to that due to the fact of when we were working with Proof, right? Yep. Proof had Barefoot is Legal, right? There was a guy in there who was a member. Okay, I'm not going to say his name because I don't want this man to get hurt.
Yep.
But I know this man, and I am Facebook friends with this man. This man is one of only 3 nuclear calibration technicians in the country. Okay, where he goes and it recalibrates nuclear power plants when they need their computers reset every so often. Okay, this man is like 70 years old. And he is also not in very good health, but he is the person that they send out when they have issues. And they can't send him everywhere if shit falls down. And he said that before in the past. Because I was very interested during one of the hurricanes that was going to hit a potential nuclear power plant in Florida at the time. And I was messaging him and they had sent him down there at the time. And he's like, what I can tell you is this. And he can only tell me so much because they sent him down here to do something, you see?
Right.
And I was like, yeah, I had a feeling you'd be there because of what I know. And he was like, you're very apt to notice that. Whoa. So he's only one of 3 who does it in the country. And he's old and not very healthy.
Uh-oh.
So what does that say? And he didn't think he would get a replacement anytime soon.
That's not good.
No. So he can't recalibrate them all. And so what Dude is saying has levity. Because if they all start even going offline in some type of accident or, EMP or there's only 3 people who could fix it. They can't send 3 people to all of them.
Yeah, there's only so many people, right? I get it.
There's only 3 of them. So yeah, you could like if there's 131, how long would it take? With only 3 people.
You can't.
Mm-mm. So we would get into that scenario. Like that is very actually plausible. I actually know this for a fact. It's something I actually know. Now it's not something I'm just speculating because this man told me I'm only one of 3.
No, but he's very specific. It's when, not if. When the utility grid is shut down.
In 2023 and early 2023, remember, when do we think the pole shift is going to occur? What month have I told you?
March.
Correct.
That's my birthday. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Your world's turned upside down, literally.
Well, that'll be a couple weeks after mine, so we can wallow together.
Yeah, no shit.
I know. So I'm the end of February, so we might as well just wallow together.
This chat room has not been active when I've done shows, so I really haven't paid attention to it. It's weird. And it's
I bring the vibe because I'm telling you, Art Bell. I'm telling you, I bring the vibe because I bring them in. I always have when I talk about these shows and get into like these other topics because it brings people in because I'm telling you, the energy is there. I'm telling you, there's something about this that's been driving me to do more shows. Dutch is even coming back doing more videos. There's something in the air right now that's telling us this is what we have to do.
Well, he even commented on that. He goes, correct. Art Bell was the best on Coast to Coast AM. Yes. I was on George Norrie's show September 27th, 2014 at 4:55 a.m. I had 2.5 minutes of fame. I talk continuously, not taking a long breath. I joined the show to speak with Canadian Defense Minister Paul Hiller.
Okay.
He made a mistake. I corrected him. When I checked the replay the next day, his staff had edited 80% of my discussion. That episode told me that George Norrie is part of the NWO. Art Bell was assassinated in his trailer.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. See, this dude knows what I'm talking about. He knows exactly what I'm talking about because Norrie has been on bullshit for years and he cuts people off when they're talking about important things and they don't let them speak when people talk out like him. He's absolutely right. I believe him 100% because I've seen it happen. I know it's happened and the show has been different ever since he took over from Art Bell. Because Art Bell left the show and gave George Norrie the rights and all that shit and basically left Coast to Coast with Clear Channel. And then George Norrie took over Coast.
If Clear Channel has it, it's over. That they're corporate.
Yeah, and they've had it since a long time ago. And then that's why when Art Bell came back, because he was never allowed to call something Coast to Coast AM again, all that. So he came out with Midnight in the Desert. And the Midnight in the Desert, like the Dark Matter News Network. The Dark Matter Digital Network, I should call it, is what he called it. Dark Matter Digital Network. So he created that in 2015 and then boom, he was barely able to make any shows and then had all these breaks in between and then boom, dead. And he said he would only come back to tell us really important shit. And that's what got me so hyped up when I heard he was coming back because that was a couple years after I had stopped listening to Art Bell continuously. And then to hear that he was coming back, I was like, what the hell is he coming back for? What does he know? Because he said he was only going to come back unless it was serious, like humanity rested on it.
Right.
And then he was killed and never got to do the shows he wanted to do and all the shit he wanted to talk about.
Well, this is fascinating because a lot of people are resonating with this, and I wish I would have paid attention. We'll do it again Thursday night and have people.
You Art Bell 3 times. I'm about to call you right after this, TLO. We're about to talk about that right now. Like legit. But thank you everybody for being there with us. We'll try to do this Thursday so that we can let some people call in and hear more from both of us and interact with us and ask the questions and talk about the things that they want to say because we didn't mean to ignore you at all. I don't have access over there on Podbean, so I can't monitor that.
Yeah, but I can get you in here.
Oh yeah, you should, because in that way I could at least try. Because I had 2 devices tonight too, so I could have monitored it on one.
Yeah, I can.
And then
I can invite you.
And then we could have let people call in, and it would have been a great show, just like Art Bell.
Well, now we know. It's a learning curve. Now we know.
I know. People always like that, though. That's why I used to like to be able to call, have call-in features and stuff like that. And I'm going to try to get set up online where we could do that again, because I do think the call-in show is the best type of show. Some of the most organic and important, pertinent information comes out of those shows.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you everybody for joining us tonight. I'm Scarlet Anonymous, and I had my co-host tonight with me, Tim Parsons. We were just calling this, I guess, Freedom Revolution Network News is usually what we do when I do a show outside of Clarity After Dark. But I mean, I guess we could have called it Clarity After Dark tonight, I guess. Same thing. It's dark at 7:00 now, so same thing.
Yeah, it's the same show. It's just I'm co-hosting with you, so whatever.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's a little bit different vibe, and I get a little bit more. I've done a lot of research in my time, so I've tied a lot of these things together, big picture, to where I think a lot of the old time hard research people get me. And so I do appreciate people for that. And we're just on this journey together. That's all we can do. So from the land of 10,000 lakes, good night, universe.
Good night.